OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
And you're very welcome along. It's Friday morning, very unusual. Shane, how are you?
This isn't what Adrian looks like.
No. Colin, how are you?
Hi lads.
Ruining the vibe.
Jeez, Fridays with Ger, this is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it is a Friday morning. Adrian Barry's doing the evening show. He's going to be in charge of the chaos that is the quiz tonight.
Ooh.
I wish you all well with your endeavours this Friday. My work here is done. Thank you
He's
very
doing
much.
the quiz.
No, he's hosting it.
He's hosting it.
Yeah, he's presenter.
Oh, no.
Are you on it?
I'm
Are
on
either
it.
of you on it?
I'm on it, yeah.
Are you?
Right.
Which concerns me now that Adrian is in charge.
Well,
Not that I have faith in him, of course.
It's a much easier role, I have to confess. It's a much, much easier role
Yeah.
presenting that.
There's a lot of smugness from the
Well, you
quizmaster's chair.
There is, because you know all the answers.
It's true, yeah.
For
yeah,
once.
yeah. And you think everyone else is stupid for not knowing, even though
Exactly,
it's
even
easy when
though-
you see the answer in front
Exactly.
of you. Yeah.
I mean, don't tell anybody that, Shane.
No.
That is the secret.
Yeah.
Right. So Chelsea and Manchester City, the Graham Potter getting sacked stuff. That's not going to happen, is it? Like they've made their beds. They've got a very, very long-term plan. The team is full of kids. Certainly at the end last night when they brought Aubameyang on and off,
Yeah.
the team ended up full of kids. You watched every minute of this last night, Colin.
Yeah. A game of two halves, Ger. First half was pretty poor. It took 20 and a half minutes for Erling Haaland to touch the ball. Raheem Sterling was taken
crap.
off
It's crap.
after
Get rid of
5
him,
minutes.
Yeah.
And Aubameyang came on and was totally anonymous and got hooked after 67 minutes. Kind of felt a bit sorry for him at the end. Didn't seem too long ago that he was Arsenal's star player.
I mean, I don't feel any sorry.
I kind of felt a bit from the human level that he was like Shane, you were saying he looked disinterested, but I thought it was more than that. That
On a
he was
human level,
completely devoid of confidence.
Didn't want to be there.
You don't want to be there. You had to be there. Didn't want to be there.
Be a good captain.
He,
do the job that you're supposed to do. Don't be arriving late to the North London derby.
So you're saying karma? Welcome to the Karma Hotel.
I mean,
He checked in.
I don't really believe in karma. I think that
Sounds like that's what you're saying.
you are the actions that you repeat the most often, or whatever one of those Graham McDowell type of aphorisms is.
I believe everyone deserves a second chance, but no one deserves a third chance. That's how.
Did you read that on Twitter last night?
I did.
There was a thread.
There was.
The 90-year-old giving advice
That
to the 32-year-old.
one stuck with me. We both saw the same
I
thing.
both saw the
obviously.
same thread. Yeah, I have a different perspective on life today. Ger didn't see it.
The threads on Twitter, I really like, lads.
I actually saw it.
Delete the app.
Instagram, I think. I saw it on.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a good thread. Yeah. Wisdom. So anyway, that was the first half. I skipped forward there to the second half about Aubameyang. But then the second half started, Pep made a couple of changes and it was a different game altogether. And City were just brilliant from the start to the second half. And that goal, Jack Grealish's cross, beautiful. Now, I would question what Kepa was doing, leaving the ball go. But what an incisive cross. And that's what the guy can do. And Jamie Carragher was saying in commentary on Sky Sports that it was actually unusual for Grealish to hit it first time. Because he usually takes 2 or 3 touches. But he's becoming maybe more ruthless and effective. And like that's the player he can be. I thought Grealish was very, very good.
He was funny after the match as well. I really, really like his post-match interviews. He was like, I'm just going to kick the... He basically said, he was asked what's going through your head when you're crossing that ball in, and he said, I'm just going to kick it in here because Erling must be in there somewhere. Clearly it wasn't Erling that lashed on to the end of it, but it's a great way of thinking. Those City lads on the wings, they're just like, right, we'll put the ball in there because clearly Erling Haaland is sitting in there somewhere. It was a great ball. I think he even seemed surprised that Kepa didn't quite get to it.
It was low-key a potential turning point for Man City's season because, like, let's not forget, it was this shit Everton team that they dropped points against.
Yeah. It's one of those wins where away from home you just need to eke it out somehow. And clearly, I don't know what Pep Guardiola said at half time, but I mean, something was said. It's Chelsea I'd be concerned about. It's funny because the reaction to Graham Potter wasn't negative at full time. They were still clapped off. I think the fans even understand that this is a project under Todd Boehly and it's really not working at the minute. They're 10 points off the Champions League places.
Todd and the new 7.5-year contract signing in the like that's obviously this is part of the reason why the whole transfer for the World Cup winner hasn't gone through just yet with Benfica. Benfica in the paper is complaining madly about the fact that
disrespectful.
That they're trying to do the deal but not do the deal because of financial fair play. And so a 7.5-year deal, obviously you get to amortise the cost of that over that 7.5 years, and so you write that off and it's good for your financial fair play. So where is it? Chelsea have been branded disrespectful over Enzo Fernandez's pursuit. He's gone crazy according to the Benfica manager, who says, we understand there's lots of money at stake, like look, we get it, just pay the money. But they can't pay the money all in one instalment. because it'll have a negative impact on their ability to do other business. And we see that their what's the name of the guy who was the sporting director of Shakhtar Donetsk was also sitting in the same box last night, and everyone's like, "Oh, I wonder what's going to happen here."
Yeah. Well, on a day where you make a £35 million signing and you're 10 points off the top four, surely top four is a minimum requirement for a team with these spending outlays.
Look, if Todd Bowley wants immediate results, fair enough. But then they wouldn't have been signing Karney Tukamenka for 25 million in the summer, and like the age profile of the team at the end is really, really, really young.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have got rid of Tuchel. They've taken 3 points off teams currently in the top 10 this season.
Tuchel doesn't want a signing who's amortised over 7.5 years. He wants Aubameyang, and he wants.
That's why I felt sorry for Aubameyang. A week later, Tuchel signed him. I can actually regenerate this striker, and a week later, Tuchel's gone. Aubameyang's probably never recovered from it. Ger, Ashley Young, Gareth Barry, sad departures for your lot, Aston Villa. But Chukwuemeka, he must be the biggest regret of the 21st century.
Well, I do wonder if it hadn't been Steven Gerrard who was there deciding that he couldn't get in the team. Like if they just put him in the team at the end of last season and he was playing week in, week out, because they had made that decision about some other young players that you're going to get in and play week in, week out. Would he have had his head turned? I'm not sure. Now there was reports a long way out that he wanted to go and play Champions League football and thought that he was better than Villa. So, like, what are you going to do? His kid brother also on Villa's books, so we'll see what happens with that one. Hopefully he's better, but
that team right at the end for Chelsea suited Graham Potter so much more than the team that started, that's what Potter needs to do. Like if I was a Chelsea fan, you're 10th, like this isn't great. They were poor enough as the game progressed, but at the end of the game you had Chukwuemeka, Hutchinson, Lewis Hall, Conor Gallagher on the pitch. Like it's a pretty promising young side, and that I think is perfect for the current manager. But at the start of the game, like Aubameyang and Potter isn't the match, and so many of those established players, because like you have to remember with Potter under Brighton, he did have that 6-week brilliant spell at the start of the season, and it was like the hottest manager in the country. But it was last year that he was being booed by his home fans at Brighton for not scoring enough goals. Like did he get overly promoted very quickly here, Potter? Like I remember thinking when he was offered that Chelsea job, stay where you are, stay at Brighton. But the allure of a massive club, maybe it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, so he took it.
He just changed his personality overnight.
He probably had to. He probably had to feel like he did. But that side at the end is his side.
I'm about 6 weeks away from wearing a turtleneck, so I'm all in favour of it.
Oh, really?
Have you ever got to keep your neck warm?
Have you ever
Why not?
worn a turtleneck before?
Why not?
I'm told that it only suits a very select few. I don't think I can risk it.
You need a giant long neck?
Well, maybe you need a giant long neck. Maybe the opposite. But I have never risked one. I've never worn one.
You're a brave man.
I could do it, yeah. Certainly do it, but I get a few looks, I think. My sisters have basically warned me off them. Not to call them out here, but they've definitely warned me off.
You should never take fashion advice from your sisters.
I know. That's
you really
fair,
shouldn't.
Because they probably don't care.
And not just your sisters, no sisters should be given.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's never good.
Cork came out there. Why?
But what do you mean never good?
Well,
I'm thinking of my own sisters there. They'd be very offended.
Yeah. So would mine, actually.
Yeah.
And are they seeing you right, though?
I think they are.
Are they seeing you right? Do they? How much of a good time do your sisters want you to have?
They don't want you to be single forever.
Well, no, but they're having some kind of vetting process going here.
True, yeah.
This is the start of a long-term, long-form vetting process.
Your sisters aren't dressing you to court. You know?
To court.
Yeah, like they're
not walking up the steps to the courthouse, but to court.
To court.
To court anyone. You know, they're not doing that. They're not setting you up for your love life.
No.
It's an advice about what looks good.
Is it though? Is it not like this would be conservative and safe now for you, and I won't be in any way embarrassed by what comes out of this?
Colum's got the cardigan on today. He's obviously taking advice.
It's like he has.
Well, do you know who I get fashion advice? Emma Carroll said she likes the cardigan, so I was like, okay, fine.
I like the cardigan as well.
Right. Yeah. And Jojo sometimes will comment, but if he doesn't comment, then I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to keep up appearances here. But not taking advice from your sisters, that's
not having it.
Must be a personal experience for you, because mine would be fine.
What's their motivation?
Motivation, their family, they love you. Well, my sisters love me.
They don't want to be embarrassed by you out in public by you looking crap. So here, please wear this. Please don't wear a turtleneck.
You have very successful public sisters who might, like, in fairness.
Oh yeah,
they might. You might reflect the brand.
Well, that's the thing. The hand brand. Yeah.
But you got to get your own brand, Shane.
I do. I think I wear.
You choose your own clothes.
I dress quite.
But they've worn them off the turtlenecks. Is the point?
Yeah, the turtlenecks.
I do. I get that. I get that. I get that.
I think they did.
Would you wear a turtleneck?
I would. Yeah.
You look like you're in the Cadbury milk tray ad if you wear a turtleneck, I think. Remember that one?
I would. No, I
Pull it
wouldn't.
off, probably. You probably pull
That's
it
what
off.
I'd say you could do. Is that a new shirt?
It's a
Christmas?
newish Christmas purchase, yeah.
So Kathleen's producing today. I'm offended for sisters everywhere, and it's Nullig na man harsh, which is a fair point.
Very fair.
But I'm not saying this isn't bad about sisters. This is just like, stop being conservative and stop.
I take
Anyway.
advice off my brother as well, to be honest.
And but your brother, that's different.
How's it
But
different?
what's the this is something very personal to you that I think we should get out.
I don't have brothers. Anyway.
Yeah, neither.
Apparently, Potter did wear the turtlenecks at Brighton anyway. It's just a media conspiracy that he didn't. Exactly. Nobody was paying any attention to him beforehand.
Right, fair enough.
We obviously got way later.
Yeah, I take that back. But Graham, I'm sorry, apologies.
Is there any way that Potter can re-establish the expectations at Chelsea and go to the owners and say, look, that team at the end, that's what I want to build.
Well,
and if you have patience with me this season,
I think they will
I
have
promise
patience.
you I'll make you a good team.
I do think that, so the multi-billionaire has a manager who, maybe he's not a multi-billionaire, but anyway, the owners obviously have massive amounts of billions invested in this, and they've decided that they're going to have a long-term plan, and they've found a guy who's going to do pretty much what he's told to do. Now, hopefully, sooner rather than later, they let him do a bit more about what he wants, and we get to see exactly what that looks like. But the team could do with a bit more, right? Like, is the 37-year-old centre back? Is that a long-term plan? He's going to be gone at the end of the year, right? Reece James' knee is a significant worry because their record with Reece James in the team is they win every game, and their record without him is that they win 50% of their games. Like, it's a small sample size, whatever. But not having him in, obviously, and it doesn't look like he's going to be back this season, does it? Or was there a specific announcement on that just yet?
It's going to be a while anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
Like, they've so many players, Chelsea. The number of players they were missing last night, and they still had this cohort of academy players to come through. Like, so it's not like they're short of options. But I just think that about a third of that squad doesn't suit him. But at the same time, when I'm saying all of this, I can't envision a world where Graham Potter is still Chelsea manager next season. I just can't.
Can you not?
I just think I think they're going to lose patience with him.
I think his rope is fairly long with Todd. I think
Todd's guy.
He's Todd's guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't see him being there for that long, and I can see it in about 5 years' time where he was like, I don't regret moving because it's Chelsea, but it just didn't work out.
And
I get that vibe.
I'm still
off
getting
him.
paid by them.
Yeah, exactly. But I still get that vibe, and that it's just not quite going to work out for him there. And if he could start, if last night was his first game, let's say, and they were the options available to him, I'd be far more excited for Potter. But it's because he's had a poor run of results coming into this.
I can see a Solskjaer type situation develop with Potter where he gets in a bit of bother every now and again with results, and then all of a sudden gets the result he needs, beats a big team just to keep him in the job for another 3 or 4 matches.
It's very possible. And also, wouldn't it be great for them not to be in the Champions League next season? Like, they're not one of those teams whose outgoings is going to be based on incomings for the foreseeable future with the level of investment that they're making. And so therefore, if they did have a season like Antonio Conte did when he won the league at Chelsea, is it the worst thing ever for them not to be in the Champions League next season?
I think it's pretty bad.
Well, but it's more than likely not going to happen. But it's not a disaster. It's not a disaster the way it is for some teams.
For recruitment, it's a disaster, sure.
Is it though? Like, they seem
Does
to be able
Enzo
to...
Fernandez want to join a team that's not in the Champions League?
Well, if Enzo Fernandez is getting paid whatever he's going to be getting paid when the buyout clause is made, like...
Is there a world where Antonio Conte returns to Chelsea next season?
No, absolutely not. The
No
managers...
Champions League. He doesn't like a busy schedule. They won't be in the Champions League. At the moment, the way they're going, they won't be in Europe. They won't be in the Conference League.
It's
That will suit
football,
Conte
so
down to the ground.
any weird thing can happen, but all of the issues that Thomas Tuchel had with the board will be magnified 1,000 times with Antonio Conte. And I don't think there's any prospect of that happening. I don't think that the Chelsea board would accept that either. Like, they want somebody who will play Christian Pulisic.
And him and
Are they going to sign Gio Reyna? I mean, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, would you? Would you be terribly surprised to see?
Yeah, I can see it happening.
We need a bit more of the Reyna parents in our lives, don't we?
Yeah.
Pochettino to Chelsea?
Don't think so.
No.
Oh, he's going to Spurs.
Think so?
All day long. Yeah, he's going back to Spurs in the summer. He's going back to Spurs. That's a relationship. Like, that's a brother and sister fashion advice thing. Poch and Spurs are made for each other. They're just taking a break.
Sarah Rose made her debut for Melbourne Victory, so she is now playing professional soccer in the off-season from her Aussie Rules career, just in time to get into the Ireland squad for the World Cup, which also happens to be in Australia, is it?
Yeah. Well, this is working out well. Now, getting into the final squad won't be easy.
It's a very high level of achievement that Sarah Rose is at the moment.
Jesus, yeah. I mean,
In the off-season, I'm going back to this thing. She went to college in America, isn't that right?
one of these really annoying people who's just unbelievable at every single sport.
Yeah.
We all remember one of those in school. Sarah Rowe was clearly one of them, where she just, everything she touches turns to gold in terms of sport. Wish her the best. That's not going to be an easy squad to break into. I'd love to know how, if she does keep a player out of the squad that hypothetically helped the team qualify, how they would feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the individual concerned would be feeling pretty peeved, but if you're in the team and all of a sudden she's on the bench and goes off the bench against Australia and scores, you're like, yeah, it was the right decision the whole time.
True. Yeah.
Sports people are notoriously fickle when it comes to their loyalty to each other.
Yeah. It's a big move. And clearly her AFLW colleagues have given her the blessing, allowed her to go off. It's a common enough thing, I think, in the off-season for them to be allowed to play other sports. But she one Irish cap so far. I mean,
2015. Yeah.
The timing seems. I mean, I know she's an injury replacement from Melbourne Victory, but the timing in a World Cup year, while she's living in Australia, has certainly piqued interest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to have big ambitions in life, right?
Got to go for it.
Absolutely. And
Wish
she
her
has
the
said
best.
that she wants to get into the squad. That's her aim. So I don't know what standards the league is at in Australia versus the other leagues. Like, is it automatic if you're like playing really well and scoring loads of goals that you get an opportunity to play for Ireland? It's semi-pro, but thanks, Kathleen. But like, is that comparative to semi-pro in Ireland? Is it like tier 2 in England? Even if she was to dominate that league, would that be enough for Vera Pauw to go, yeah, okay? Because Vera Pauw did have her in a squad, I think, like one of those training squads.
Yeah.
Is that in the middle of COVID? Yeah.
Trained with
2021, yeah. So, right. So off the bench this morning for Melbourne Victory. Very, very impressive. There was a story about the tickets for the World Cup as well. What's the crack here?
Basically, 4% allocation the Republic of Ireland have been given. This story broke overnight. You'll see Louise Quinn's response to it there. So our own Kathleen McNamee tweeting, the FAI received just a 4% ticket allocation of this World Cup opener against Australia. That's about 1,700 tickets out of a capacity of 42,500. Louise Quinn voicing her disapproval. Very unfair to our Irish supporters and to us for such a small allocation, hoping they could dig out more tickets to create an unbelievable atmosphere. Seems a bit on the low end. I know, Colm, you were saying that the Wales team, for example, in the Men's World Cup had a similar enough allocation for some of their World Cup matches, but there is the added thing as well that a lot of those tickets going to Australia will probably end up in Irish hands, you'd imagine.
Well, you hope so. I mean, this is definitely the start of our everybody hates us, we don't care bunker mentality. We're getting screwed by the Australians already. It hasn't even started. Can you imagine what the level of tension is going to be when it comes to refereeing decisions?
True. Yeah. Get in their heads early.
We're watching you, Australia.
Australia or FIFA we're getting screwed by, or both.
Oh well, I mean, obviously it's
obviously FIFA, but we'll take it out last
blame
night.
anyone. We'll blame anyone for sure.
like that's not how this works. Can't bring logic to this.
Yeah, of course.
But apparently that's the allocation that you get when you're a minnow, is it?
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't think is this anything personal to do with Ireland. I mean, like Kathleen was saying pre-show, this is definitely a FIFA thing, and Ireland are just one of the many victims. But there was a purchase link provided for successful applicants for tickets, and many supporters were left disappointed when they tried to buy tickets straight away, because 1,700 people.
I'd love to hear from anyone,
the
like in the comments, has anyone got a ticket this morning, like for the opening game, because they've been put on sale, haven't they, as you said? So haven't heard of anyone. I know a lot of people down in Australia at the moment, and all of them looking for tickets, but haven't heard of one person be successful yet from an Irish perspective. I think we all want to head over there in June, don't we? Is it June or July? July start.
August. August.
July 20th, yeah.
July 20th is the first game, yeah.
Well, we're going all the way until August, though.
Of course, but it's the anniversary of the moon landing, July 20th, so that's why I keep remembering it.
All right.
Yeah. Sticks in my head. It's a big day in the Hannon household.
All right. Our daily Evan Ferguson update. Is everybody ready? Are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
How good do you think this is going to be?
We should have a sting and Evan Ferguson.
We should have like a Fergusonometer.
Yeah.
Fergonometer.
Fergie time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we got there at the end. We workshopped that. Pascal Gross, German footballer, obviously not prone to outrageous hyperbole and outbursts. We keep getting shit from people watching this and on social media for being excited about this.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, God bless him, he'll never survive this hype. I'm like, well, he'll never survive people being excited for his success. Like, so we're supposed to begrudge him his success. Like, our national characteristic is supposed to, we're damping everything down for fear that we might somehow be disappointed in the future.
Yeah, it'd be
Is that
terrible.
it?
Our audience is warning us not to get too excited because
Well,
they're
get
using the
excited.
Aaron Connolly. They're using the Aaron Connolly example against us.
The
after
world is
the Spurs
hurtling
game.
towards
That's
its
what they're doing.
conclusion.
You only live
Yeah,
once.
but you've said that for the last 5 years.
But the world is
And we're still
literally
here.
hurtling towards its own conclusion, and we're supposed to be like, oh yeah.
As in the
weather-
planet is dying.
I suppose the weather's a bit better, but actually, you know, everybody around the world is starving and dying, and disease is rampant. We should not enjoy football.
I like that
We
link.
should.
The planet's dying, so let's get excited about it.
Yeah, come on!
Yeah, about
It's
Evan
going to be one of the last things that we remember.
Yeah,
Pascal Gross, a man not noted for his overstatement.
yeah.
He reckons Evan Ferguson won't be the only Irish teenager lighting up the Premier League in Brighton this year.
Oh.
Right? Former Bray Wanderers midfielder Andrew Moran, who's 19, dubbed the Irish Phil Foden by his ex-Brighton coach, which we didn't make a big enough deal out of at all. Made his Premier League debut as a sub against Everton midweek, and Gross said, "They're both doing really well in training every day. They're both great young players." Now, he's obviously a student of Irish football. He knows the difference. You call somebody great in Ireland, it's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Doherty and Giles, they had the whole great, good, not great thing. It's like the inside of a stick of rock in Irish football. Pascal Gross knows this. He's a student of the game.
Fair.
In your first Premier League games, maybe the nerves can affect you, but Evan played a great game. He's fighting Irish. Bit of a cliche there.
Oh.
Bit of national stereotyping, Pascal. We'll let you away with
Paddy's
that one.
Day is coming up as
this
well.
one. He's playing good football and he fits right into the team. Andy is a brilliant player as well, and I'm really pleased that he got his debut. I mean, come on.
I was speaking with Dan McDonald about this, and he's going to come
Phil
on.
Foden and Lewandowski.
He's going to come on in a couple of weeks to talk about these lads at Brighton. He's seen a lot of them.
Brilliant.
So going to have a good analysis about that. But that is very exciting. The future of football is very exciting in that sense.
I'd say
very exciting. Do you know what this would be now? If Ireland play France very soon, and if this is back in the Dunphy and Giles days, what would happen is France might give us a hockeying there, 3 or 4-0, and then afterwards there'd be a big existential crisis. And then, you remember Dunphy used to always call for Stephen Quinn to be in the team. That was his big thing. Get Stephen young Stephen Quinn in, right? But nowadays he'd be like, get those Brighton lads into the team straight away. But we'd actually have something tangible to hold on to here. We really do have players coming through now. Whereas it was dark days for the last 10 years. Under the last days of Dunphy and Giles and RT. Do you remember that? Do you remember they'd have these crisis talks every time we get a hammering?
Yeah.
And there'd be nobody
Always.
coming through.
Yeah.
Is this not the best we've had?
100%. I
Since,
actually think
2002?
I'm not getting too excited, but I think in 2 years' time, when you Google Andy Moran, you won't get the former Mayo Footballer of the Year now Leitrim manager. You'll get
shots fired.
You'll get Brighton midfielder.
Andy
and-
Moore's that guy used to be a friend of yours.
I think the Google SEO will
Will he
slowly
go by
change.
Andrew though to differentiate himself?
Well, Pascal called him Andy there, didn't he?
He
on
did,
stage?
yeah.
So maybe they know him as Andy in training. Andy Moran, second coming.
Pascal Gross is 31. He's not prone to hyperbole.
True.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We are, obviously.
So 31-years aren't.
Why 31 would it be? But
Well,
It's an age thing.
yourself and Daniel Craig are.
Grizzled veteran. Pascal Gross is what I'm saying. He's seen everything at this stage.
Yeah.
He's seen the Johnny come latelys. He's seen your Aaron Connolly's come and go. But these two, they're here for staying.
I like it. Yeah. Confidence. I was getting hate in the comments, in the YouTube comments yesterday for look at Shane in the corner talking to Toto Scolacci, pretending he remembers Italian ID.
You probably don't remember Italian ID, do you?
I know I don't, but as I pointed out in the comments, replying to someone, I said it's a generational trauma.
Yeah.
No, if people remember Italian ID, you don't have to have been alive to remember it. In a different kind of sense.
What do you watch reading in the years?
Of course.
But when you see the game, you realise it wasn't really a generational trauma at all. It was like...
Yeah, but true. It was getting to the last day, it was pretty significant in itself.
Yeah, there was probably an easier path to the final. That was a very good team. Could have gone a bit further. But for the style of football.
True.
Enda there in the comments saying a lot of Irish fans in Sydney would have put in as Australia on the FIFA website, knowing that they'd have a better chance of getting tickets.
Cute.
Happen all tournament rules, Australian rules over the years, or international rules over the years.
That makes sense.
That might be the way to get it, yeah. Anthony Ryan above saying 4% ridiculous, but I expect the stadium will have 10 to 15% Irish fans, which is in indirect connection to Enda's comment there.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it didn't work out in the end in favour for the Irish. It always does. Brian Cody's back in management.
Yeah, this is it's funny because he'd obviously been involved with James Stephens, which is his hometown club, his home club.
Yeah.
During the club championship in Kilkenny, we kind of saw this, that he'd been co-opted in as a selector, but I think the speculation about him, he'd been very involved And so now there's no selector. He's just going to be the manager next
I
year.
like the idea of the manager of James Stephens giving a 10-minute team talking at the end. Brian, did you want to add anything in there? A couple of words? Yeah, lads, give it your all. I mean, that's what a selector does, but I don't think Brian would have been too quiet in those.
So he's set to become manager for the second time, having also taken charge in the mid-1990s. Obviously, a different Cody at that stage.
For the village.
This is Michael Verney's story here, saying that it's going to be full-time. I
love them saying his son German as well, who's captain and fullback last season, is gone travelling, so won't be involved next year. If your dad's in charge, you don't want to stay put.
I don't know. It's hard. Like, what if he drops you?
Yeah, I'd probably stay away for that reason.
Yeah.
He's younger than I thought. 68. He'll go for another while yet.
Be tough for your dad being your coach. My sister was once taught by my mum in primary school for one whole year. I think it's difficult. It's similar with if your dad or your mother is your manager at a club level in sport. That's tough.
It is tough.
There's obviously claims of nepotism if you're getting picked, and if you're not getting picked, there's trouble at home.
It's tougher if your teammates. Ida Gudjonsen made his senior debut in professional football, replacing his dad.
There you go.
Match in Iceland.
Yeah,
you know
it can work out, but I mean it's a difficult one. I think.
Yeah. Now you're probably thinking, Jesus, what am I going to watch on Netflix now over the next week? Now the Christmas is over, and how will I get through January? Breakpoint.
Yeah.
Tennis's answer to Drive to Survive, premiering next week.
Not
this day next week.
Point Break.
The 13th of January. Part 1. It's going to be very exciting. And of course, in 10 days' time, the Australian Open starts. Might be without Emma Raducanu, who's got injured yesterday.
Sorry, they've been very smart. I've seen the episode list for Breakpoint, and Nick Kyrgios is the first episode. And they're like, right, we'll draw you in with a bit of Nick, and we'll keep you here with a bit of Nick.
He's already alluded to that in social himself, saying that they're using me a lot. I see. I'm so surprised that he was that cooperative with it. I thought he's so anti-establishment that he wouldn't want to have anything to do with Netflix.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised. He was like,
follow me around. He's not anti-establishment. He's a bit of a narcissist, a bit of an attention seeker who's very talented. Like, surely you can admit that there are some issues there, but equally he just wants to be loved. At the deep down core of Nick Kyrgios, he just wants to be loved.
I think that's on the surface that he wants to be loved, but I didn't think he'd cooperate with the man so much.
Do they get paid, the players? No.
Yeah, of course they do.
They do, yeah.
I don't know, but
of course they do.
I don't know now. I'm sure they cooperate, but they might get favourable treatment.
Well, maybe that's it. And they get branding and exposure, and they get paid by their sponsors extra for being in it. It's like, how much did the logo show? The logo showed a lot.
Have you noticed, can I bring up the fact that there's been a fashion change mid-show? You might not have noticed this, but Colm has taken the cardigan off mid-morning. So the milk tray, I don't know if it was the milk tray comment that made him take it off.
No, this seat is just so unusual, like, because you start off cold and it gets warmer as you go on. Just the exact seat here, but over there would be temperate.
Yeah. It's a similar jumper to Ger's actually in colour.
Microclimates of the OTB studio.
Yeah.
It's a Friday. Is not everybody not happy about life?
I like it.
You're a young man, Shane. Can you explain?
Relatively speaking, yeah.
Can you explain to me what's a throuple?
A throuple? Couple with 3 people in it.
Apparently it is, yeah.
Is it a thing?
Yeah, apparently it's a thing, yeah.
Things are progressive nowadays.
Phil Egan showed me this morning. Is that
David Hay?
David Hay, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he showed me this.
David Hay and Una Healy.
The corridor.
I saw a photo of Una Healy having dinner with David Hay and another woman, and I was thinking, they're friends.
She was the throuple.
But it's a throuple.
Yeah, it is, yeah. They're officially a throuple.
Hadn't heard this. I was too busy lapping up all the Prince Harry stuff. Of course.
A couple of throuples in that too, was there?
A few.
Oh my God, yeah.
Back in the day, wasn't that? That was Diana's main thing, was that they were a throuple. She was just unaware of it at the time.
True. Yeah. Nice segue there.
There you go. Right, it's 7:58 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream, or you can get us however you normally get us at Off the Ball AM. Chris Kyle says, when Villa wave at Chelsea as we fly past them, Potter will be gone. No way when they're on the second page of the table that he survives. Yeah, I don't know. The old Yank owners, they tend not to be sacking you in the middle of the season. Very, very rare for that to happen, and certainly not for the first one for that to happen, because they all think it looks bad on them, and for whatever reason they believe in that stuff. We are going to take a quick break. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. You're going to hear John Giles talking to Nathan about why Manchester United's midfield is better now with Casemiro and Eriksen. After that, we're back live with Alan Quinlan and Ronan O'Gara.
Long way to go for Manchester United as well, but they're in a strong run of form. They've won their last 4 Premier League games, and they've only been beaten once since that humiliation in the Manchester derby against City, a 3-0 win the other night against Bournemouth. Casemiro scored the opening goal. He was set up by Christian Eriksen. Those two as a midfield too, compared to what was there in Fred and McTominay. How impressed have you been with what Casemiro and Eriksen have brought to United in midfield this season?
Well, I think they're better players, Nathan, and they look more likely to do the job that's needed in the middle of the pitch. Like Ten Hag is getting a grip of it now. But I think the big thing is Ronaldo going, Nathan. You can't have a team in a team spirit with what Ronaldo was doing. Don't forget, from the start of the season, he was looking for a transfer. Then he disappeared in a match twice. He wouldn't go on. You can't run a team with what's needed when you're in a situation like that. And such a big personality as Ronaldo. I think Manchester United look a different team, at different clubs, since Ronaldo's gone out of the place.
So you think
a better team?
Yeah. But
you got team spirit now, Nathan. You know what I mean? You got lads now who none of them that we know of want to go. Ronaldo's a big personality, and what he was doing there, I was amazed that the manager let it go on for so long. And the fact that he's gone now, I think, is a big relief for him. And this I think United will get better with them. There'll be a good team spirit about them.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports Rugby.
Carberry's played well for Ireland every time he's been called on. He probably plays better for Ireland than he does for Munster. Some of the hype around Jack Crowley has been premature. He's played pretty well, but having him as the second coming of Christ seems to be a little bit aggressive.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's a minute past 8 this Friday morning. I'm delighted to say we have Alan Quinlan in studio and Ronan on the line. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome. Ronan, I might start with you. Was it an open secret in rugby circles that Healy was going to go to Scotland? Were you aware of this from a way back, or was it kind of relatively new news?
No, very, very new. First I ever heard of it. Obviously, I'm removed from Munster now. No, I read it on Twitter. Was it 2 days ago? I missed the initial. I heard rumours of going to Glasgow. Wasn't there approach during the summer?
Yeah.
But obviously that's par for the course in rugby nowadays. There'll always be potential signings, but it's gone to the other extreme now, where it's a done deal, and obviously declaring for Scotland, which is it's big news.
What did you make of it?
I can understand where Ben is coming from. I think it's very, very competitive in Munster and Ireland, but he is still very young with low mileage, with a huge capacity, I think, to get better. But obviously, I think he's been enticed by Gregor Townsend and the fact that this is his World Cup probably in 10 months' time. There's it's probably been sold to him, and the fact that a nice foil with Finn Russell and I suppose the solidity, game management of Ben Healy with the maverick approach of Finn Russell seems to go well for a 23-man squad. Obviously Hastings is injured for the Six Nations, which could open the door, but it's a big decision for a young player. I remember going back donkey's years, I met Eddie O'Sullivan when he was coaching the US Eagles, and I was in that position where I was kind of trying to convince myself I could play for Cork and represent America at national level. But thankfully I didn't make that decision, because once you make that, you can't turn it back, and it's a huge moment for the player and for Ben, and the emotions involved, and with his family involved in that. It's a big call, and as we know, the show goes on, but when you put it in his situation, that's a massive, I suppose, decision for any young player to make.
Yeah, it seems like it's a permanent decision being made about maybe a short-term problem at not getting into the team at the moment, Quinny?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, I think his head was turned. He's obviously probably getting a good contract, salary as well, but I wouldn't say it's kind of thrown in the towel, but
it is a bit, isn't it?
That kind of expression is probably a wrong expression, but it feels a little bit like you'd love to kind of him to have an attitude of saying, well, okay, I have a little bit of a dip in form here and behind a little bit here. And Roger will know himself from playing with Munster, particularly in the back row. When I played there, we all had moments or periods where we weren't in the team. David Wallace came back from 2001 Lions tour, and he was playing with Gary Owen a few months later. Leamy came on the scene. Jim Williams was there. I was there. Axel. A lot more depth in the back row, and Molly was playing with Gary Owen for a few months. So you have dips like that, particularly for a young player who propelled himself on the scene in the last kind of year and a half of his ability to kick long range penalties, a lot of composure, control. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that. Because other opportunities will come as regards bigger contracts, like to go to France in another. It's a really, really big decision, but he obviously feels that the door is closing a little bit more and closed.
He's not thrown in the towel though if he feels more Scottish.
How does he feel Scottish? He's from Tipperary, Shane.
I know,
you know what I mean. But he's one of his grandparents are Scottish. They've been putting the squeeze on him. It was going on last year as well with Glasgow, and fair play. Scotland. Gregor Townsend has obviously convinced him that he can develop his game, do something with him, and I'm not saying it's the wrong call. I admire him for being brave about it. For me personally, I would have loved the kind of. You see, it's a very short career as well. So he stays on for another 2 years, a year or two, and suddenly he's 25, 26. The opportunities don't come around, and it's the same in coaching as well. So sometimes you've got to just go with your gut. He's done that. It's a big call, and it's a pity for Irish rugby that it's happened. In an ideal world, from an Irish rugby point of view, go to Connacht, go to Ulster, start there, play against Carbery, play against Jack Crowley. Johnny Sexton is leaving next year, so the gap we're always talking about, it will be a more even playing field next year. So they've turned his head and he's made the decision, and fair play to him for being brave for that. I would have liked to have seen him stay and fight it out a little bit, but I do understand in a sense that there's a frustration probably there the way things have turned out in the last couple of months for him.
Ronan, you guys were linked with one of the young Munster halves, trying to take them on loan about a year ago. Is that right? Was it Crowley or was it?
Not take him on loan, sign him. Jack right. Crowley.
It was Crowley. Okay, so you obviously scouted the Munster halves and were looking to see.
Yeah, of course I did, exactly. I just there was a Cork-Con connection there. It was more, I would rate Don Lenihan's opinion on rugby because I worked with him he was my coach, my manager, kind of a mentor, and it's weird with a second row. I felt a very good connection with him, and obviously he looked after me and bringing me up in Con in that regard, and kind of, I suppose, grew me well. So he recommended this guy from Bandon Grammar, and I had kind of watched him and watched footage of him. I thought he was good, but from my point of view, he was more as a number two. Who can I get someone that I can maybe get 8 or 10 games a year out of, and the situation in Munster isn't clear cut about. There's 3 very, very good number 10s, but 3 very good number 10s doesn't work, and it's not really of any interest what our opinion on it is, Ger. It's got to do with what Ben Healy, boys are talking about throwing in the towel. I don't think Ben Healy would be throwing in the towel. I think he's presented with a set of circumstances of consequences in front of him, and he has decided to do this. So I think it is very interesting when you look at it like that, because he may feel that no matter how he plays, whether it's right or wrong, that the door is closed in front of him and his progress in Munster or in Ireland is blocked and he wants out.
Does that, Ronan, highlight one of the major difficulties in managing an Irish province? You have to deal with these sorts of things and dilemmas of keeping players involved within the country, and it certainly is something that's unique.
It's in every club, in every sport, in all around the world. That's the reality of what happened. The club sees it one way, a player sees it very differently at times, and I see that on a daily basis, and that's something what you have to manage. In this situation, Munster will feel pretty loaded in the fact that they have Carberry and Crowley, and Ben Healy has decided to take a different route. It's a professional sport. It's quite ruthless at the top, and that's the decision. Sometimes these things, there doesn't need to be any blood whatsoever. It's just the way I suppose the market works.
Alan, one of the things that we've given Andy Farrell a lot of credit for is spotting talent, taking players who might not be even first choice of the province and making them first choice for Ireland. You think of Gibson Park, and there's a few examples in the second row and even in the back row where they pick players and they put them in. Healy didn't get that opportunity really to shine with Ireland at the senior level, which would suggest they don't think that this is a significant loss in terms of the talent pool, or that they feel like they're loaded as well at Ireland level.
Yeah, well, it was obviously with emerging Ireland, he wasn't picked to go on that tour to South Africa, and I feel if this was Leinster, and it's not a Munster-Leinster thing, but you know, even during our successful time and when we had a really strong squad in Munster and we were winning European Cups, even guys on, you know, on the fringes of that squad or younger players coming through, they didn't want to leave because they wanted to be part of, this was a winning team, and there was a kind of there was a good badge of honour in a sense being part of a very, very strong squad, in a sense that your marketability even was still quite high. Even if you weren't getting a lot of games, you were still part of a Munster squad. That's happening with Leinster. You know, there's certain players in Leinster who are second, third choice, and they're still part of a really strong squad of players that still makes them quite marketable to teams in France and UK and wherever. They don't play the same number of games. So Munster's a little bit different at the moment, that their path is obviously different. So I think he had a surge up, didn't he, you know, in the last year and a half, 2 years. But the evolution of his game and taking it to the next level has been restricted by playing 2 games, not playing for another 4 or 5, then the nature of it here. So, you know, he's at a point where someone like ROG or Gregor Townsend, or who's top class international experience, they get their hands on this guy, and that I think probably is what's turning this here. And it's a different pathway, it's a very brave one, and it's a shame that he's gone, but he hasn't been called into an Irish squad or trained with them, so that would indicate that
if you were happy enough for this to have happened.
Well, I wouldn't say they're happy. I'd say they would have loved him to go to Connacht or Ulster.
They didn't do enough to stop it. They didn't like say, okay, look, you know, you're definitely a major part of our plans in the future.
There's a you know, Munster tried to keep him, but they wouldn't have been able to offer him 200 grand a year. You know what I mean? It's just
if you could, if they wanted to.
It's like you're creating a precedent there.
You are, but you're deciding that like
you're offering guys who are not starting on their provincial teams that kind of money. It's just not sustainable, or it's not right, and you know, we've so many positives about the model here and the way it goes, and envy from a lot of clubs.
Okay, no, I just want to bring Ronan in on that. Like so Munster feel pretty loaded. They've got 2 out halves now, right? But like, say Crowley develops into a world class 12, which is potential, but it's unlikely. But you know, there are games at the moment where we're seeing Carberry play 10 and Crowley's also on the pitch at the same time. Then all of a sudden, if one of those gets injured, you don't have any replacements. And like when Sexton goes, which may well be at the end of the World Cup, after that, all of a sudden we have a tier of players who are all very, very similar, from Ross Byrne and Harry Byrne and Kieran Frawley and the 3 lads at Munster, and that's it. We don't have they have
Tony Butler coming through as well in the academy, who's a very exciting player in Munster, you know.
So they obviously feel comfortable enough that next season Champions Cup semi-final level. Do you know, that's what you're...
There's a real danger here. Yeah, there's a real danger. Sorry, I interrupted Rog there, but there is a real danger. And Roger, you probably know this yourself, Rog. It's like, look at Manchester United signing Jack Butland and Ten Hag saying we need 3 goalkeepers. You need 3 fly halves in the squad as well.
But the most important thing is if the player wants to do something, the player wants to do something. So Ben has decided, no one else has decided to sign for Edinburgh or Scotland. Ben Healy has decided to do that. You know, we can discuss and debate the threats and the opportunities and the challenges involved in this decision, but ultimately it's his decision. He has seen a kind of a pathway to play Test rugby by taking this route. Do we know whether it'll work out? Will Munster miss him? Will Ireland miss him? That's all to be decided. It's very hard to speculate when there isn't probably an established pecking order at Munster. Of lately, it's probably Carberry, Crowley, Healy, I would think. But with the rugby I have seen, it's probably no one has, I suppose, dictated where they started 5 games in a row. It's Crowley, maybe Carberry, 1 game Ben Healy. Very, very difficult to establish a rhythm, a pecking order when it's like that. But then that's how you manage your players too. But then all of a sudden the system gets a jolt when one of the I suppose guys with a lot of potential decides to leave. But
when you're trying to sign a player yourself in that position, and I think this is where Gregor Townsend is a significant part of this, to actually get a player, and you probably know this from yourself, when you sit down and talk to someone, you've got to sell them a plan and say, this is where we're going and this is how I view you. So I think Gregor Townsend has had a real major impact. Obviously he's a fly half as well. If you were trying to sign Bell Healy, his argument to anyone else would be, well, Ronan O'Gara has been there, done that, Gregor Townsend has. Do you rely on that to tell a player a story, that this is where I want you, this is how I see you, this is how I view you? And for me, it would convince me if some other coach says, I want you, I believe in you, this is what I'm going to do with you, as opposed to Graham Rowntree is not in that situation, or Mike Prendergast at the moment, where they can't. Their argument is doesn't have the same weight.
I think it does. I think what's, I suppose, interesting in this case, Quinny, is that you're not talking about a confirmed player. You're talking about a player with a lot of potential. That's a dangerous conversation with younger players, because you begin using the words but and if you progress and hit your potential. We don't know where his limit is. While the same could be said in his growth in Munster and with Ireland. But there's obviously a good reason why he hasn't been called into the Irish camp, because it's the best 2 or 3 every time for test selection. He isn't in that category yet. Ireland's depth chart is a lot greater than Scotland, so hence his progress into the top 2 or 3 in Scotland will be accelerated, and he'll probably hit that within the next 2 months. So, but I think for all younger players and for any players, it's very important that they have an appreciation of the bigger picture, because things change. As you say, post World Cup, the situation in Ireland will be very, very different in terms of the capacity to lead the team at number 10, because there's going to be a huge opening there with Johnny stepping aside.
And look, Gregor Townsend might not be the Scotland coach after the World Cup. If things go well for him, great. But if things go badly, the Scottish press have no loyalty to him whatsoever. He'll be a blow-in that was grandfathered in and an easy scapegoat.
He hasn't played for Scotland yet. No. He might not play for Scotland. Has he come out and confirmed that this is...
Well, that's obviously right.
It's pretty obvious
that you're out of the Ireland setup. I have one last question on this to wrap this part of it up. In 5 years' time, Ronan, when you're the Ireland coach and Ben Healy is kicking 15 points against you,
and I'm your manager, Rog,
in Murrayfield, who will you be swearing against? Will it be him or will it be the Irish? What are you doing, lads? Why did you let this happen?
That's exactly what goes through your head with a lot of these things. It's a very interesting call, because I would have thought, especially with Mike Prendergast in Munster, his I suppose career path would have been very well mapped, and his capacity to progress with a half-back coach essentially would have been accelerated. But He's obviously has deep frustrations about something, and he's decided to go this way. If I'm the Ireland coach in 5 years and he's kicking 15 points against me, it means I'll have to score a lot of tries against him.
It's we have to accept this and wish him well, because we accepted the other way, don't we?
Just not in the game against us in the World Cup.
Bundyaki,
him and John Cooney running in 3 tries in 15 minutes at the end, be like, lads.
Irish qualified guys. Anton Frisch is
like that's exactly what you want, sure. That's not a trait. If Cooney and Healy are the starting halfbacks for Scotland in the World Cup, I can be pretty sure that a lot of players in Ireland will be licking their lips at taking on and breaking down that halfback combination. That's the other side of it. It doesn't come into the heads of Josh van der Fleer that Ben Healy is playing. This is an opponent in front of him, whether he's, Ben Healy from Tipperary or Ben Healy from Zimbabwe, and he's playing in a Scottish jersey, or from Glasgow. It's the exact same. He's got to prepare a plan to destroy what's in front of him. And if it's Cooney and Healy as the halfback for Scotland, I think Ireland would very much fancy their chances.
Yeah, it has to be as ruthless as that, really, and we expect it will be. Ronan, before we let you go, the last game before Christmas for La Rochelle was a defeat. How quickly were you able to park that and have the crack at Christmas?
Santa didn't come to Cork.
You won against Perpignan last week, so that was...
That's always easy with hindsight. It was set up for a great Christmas back home for 2 days, but once the 23rd happened, I felt like cancelling Christmas, came home, travelled home on my own, and it was an angry, grumpy Father Christmas, but...
You still had the darts though, Ronan.
Oh, what about that the other night, Shane? Fantastic.
I had to bring it up. Ger's going to kill me for bringing it up.
The greatest leg ever.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Oh, wow. Jeez, I loved it. We gotta go. Let's get the off the ball fun bus. Let's get a podcast from the alley.
100%. We have Michael Smith coming on the show now the week after next, so I think we should go to Ali Pally next year as a group.
No, we should bring the show to Michael Smith.
100%.
Michael Smith coming to us.
All right, this is the greatest roadshow idea you've ever had.
Yeah, December, Ali Pally, let's go.
Back to the rugby. You've Toulouse tomorrow. Now, what about that? What's going to happen there?
Hold on there's a bit of outside noise coming in on the street, lads, is there?
Yeah, Toulouse, they're not great, are they? Sorry, one last question. Should Ireland be doing more to attract the Brennan boys? I mean, we've heard that they might want to play for France instead, but should we be doing what Scotland have just done to us with the Brennan lads?
Yeah, but I think, and I see my own thing, school is so powerful. Trevor's in Toulouse for over 20 years. Trevor's kids are French. All his mates are French. He's come up through the French schooling system. He has developed relationships, family bonds, fraternity with these guys that he's playing with week in, week out with Toulouse, underage, and then up to the Marcosi with the French team. I meet Trevor regularly and I see him a lot, and you wouldn't get a better Irishman, but in terms of where his kids are at, his kids are French. They want to play for France. Yes, they can try and turn his head, but as you say, it's exactly the thing. It's not what your dad wants to do. It's not what the system wants to do. It's what these are their own people. They make their own decisions, and I think when you're outside of Ireland, you can appreciate that. They never went to school in France. In Ireland. They've never played in Ireland. Yes, their dad is Irish, but these guys are it's French. Like you mean Josh, when he speaks, you wouldn't know he's Irish.
No. Are you telling us there, breaking the news to us, that your 5 are all going to play for France? Is that the?
No, mine are different because I'm coming back, but I see it, as I'm talking to you about in the World Cup at the minute. Obviously, they think their team is France. I'm there. We don't support France. Our team is Ireland. But how do you explain to them Ireland aren't in the World Cup? They just don't understand it,
Yeah, it's tough. You got your job cut out here on many multiple fronts. Just make sure they don't play for France. You'll be grand. You'll be welcome back at any point there, Ronan.
When when Ugo is on, when we're on first name terms with Ugo, I was there. Who's Ugo? Ugo Lloris. I was there. Who is Ugo Lloris? And he was there because he's the teammate of Harry Kane, and that day he was never going to get that penalty because Ugo knew what he was going to do, and I was there. Who is Ugo?
Well,
but that's what they talk about in the schoolyard, and it's an example for the Brennans. They've played all. Even though they're still young and they could play for Ireland, I think they want to play for France first.
All right, Ronan, we'll let you go. Good stuff. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. See you. Good to chat.
The other side of that, obviously, is, of course, Andy Farrell's youngest son is living in Ireland, growing up in Ireland, in the Ireland school system at the moment. So we take him. If the swings and roundabouts are that we lose the Brennan kids, but we get Andy Farrell's son, we'd be happy.
Yeah, and that's how it's working with Ben Healy, and I made the point that it works both ways. It's all about timing and stuff like that. Trevor's two sons are doing really well, and there's another one on the making strides as well. So it's
is there a third one?
Yeah, I'm nearly sure there is. But Joshua, he's the second row, back row, who's doing, playing. He's in that Toulouse squad and he's doing very, very well there. So I'm sure Ireland and the RFU will be looking at that situation. It's all about timing, really, isn't it?
It is about timing.
Excuse me.
Making the point as well that it's about marketing. Like the two lads arriving back into Irish rugby will be a massive boost for whatever province gets them. You can build a lot around that.
Excuse me.
We'll get you a drink.
An awful dose of a cough.
You're grand. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you want to get involved in the conversation, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can always leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Will we let you go? Or you?
No, I'm fine. I'm grand.
Okay. The URC fixtures this week, it's kind of like at some level we're waiting for the teams who are in the European Cup to get some form together. For Connacht, though, every single match really matters now because their form has been so chaotic.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for them. They've shown us glimpses of how good they can be when they hold on to the ball and they attack, but they've got the Sharks at home now, and it's a must win game for them. They've lost 7 in the league, and it's the pressure's kind of mounting there on them that their season is going to kind of peter out. They don't make Europe, they don't make playoffs. They're in the Challenge Cup. Good start there with the win in Newcastle, win in Brive. But they want to get into Europe and they need to go on a run now in the league, and it's imperative that they get a result this weekend against the Sharks, who are a very, very powerful, strong side. It's going to be difficult for them tomorrow, but they've got to get a win. They've got to get some consistency in their game, and they've got to make the sports ground a really difficult place and just start picking up wins there really quickly.
It has to turn around for them, as you say, otherwise it's going to be a lost season, and with a coaching ticket turnover, we don't think it's going to be turned over significantly, but that's just another period where you were waiting for something to happen and it didn't happen, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, and it's you have to give Connacht a lot of plaudits for the ambition, the way they play, the restrictions they have around squad numbers and depth and marquee signings and all that kind of stuff. They've got to make do sometimes with what they have, and they've done remarkably well. But it's you think to attract more players, even younger players from within Ireland. We're talking about the Ben Healy thing. Would he went there and taken on Jack Carty for that the out half spot there? Would that been a possibility? I'd love to have seen Ben Healy stayed.
Do we think he got offered a contract?
I think he got offered big money
in Connacht and Ulster, because Ulster don't have a good out half at the moment who we think is in competition.
I think the opportunity the RFU would gladly have
do we think they had that conversation?
I don't know, it's speculation, but I think to keep Ben Healy within the system, there would have been the obvious choices.
It would have been mad not to have that
Ulster
conversation.
or Connacht,
yeah,
and put him into one of those places. But anyway, for Connacht, I think, for them to get into the playoffs, that has to be the target. They've made it really, it's a tough run for them. Andy Friend is leaving at the end of the season. They have a lot of good players. Are they still a little bit underpowered up front? Probably. They have a lot of quality there and really exciting young players and the way they play. But it comes down to results, Ger, and they've got to beat the Sharks and try and get, dare I say, 5 points against them tomorrow.
All right, Quinny, we'll leave it there for now. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Thanks very much for that. Now, we're going to hear from Nathan in just a moment, talking about how his obsession with Football Manager nearly ruined his life. And after that, we're going to be talking with Clare legend David Tubridy.
I thought you couldn't go longer than 6.
What, EU law or something? Well, they can do what they want now.
That's probably it.
They can do what they want.
I just go by what I like, Football Manager rules.
Oh well, then.
No, but I did think it was. I thought it was basically a 5-year or to the end of the season on the 6th year was the rule. But obviously it might be a post-Brexit thing that's changed that actually.
So danger here. One of my children got an Xbox for Christmas, and Football Manager is on the Xbox, freely available to play. And I think I've discussed this before, how I had to get my wife to physically break my Football Manager copy in front of me about 10 years ago. Because it had got to the stage, obviously working in this profession, I was starting to get confused between what was real life and what was happening in my Football Manager game. And I'd be really annoyed at a certain player who had let me down, and I'd be bringing that up, like, he's in terrible form, he hasn't scored in weeks. Gonna have to sell him.
I bought Football Manager for the first time in about 10 years, a year and a half ago. It was the summer. My wife was watching Love Island. It turns out that's on all the time. It's on like every night for 6.5 months or something. So I sort of said, right, I don't want to be like the antisocial person, go into the other room and like play the PlayStation. So I'll get Football Manager, play it there, like, and sort of be in the same room. I honestly didn't find it as alluring as I did many years before.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, I got sick of it, to be honest. It's too technical and boring. It's like you just want to.
Well, they've overcomplicated it.
Yeah, they absolutely have. Like,
my concern, because
it's more like being a real manager now, but that's a job. There's a reason they get paid for that.
Like new year, new me, and all that. And new me really wants to sit down and see if I have the self-discipline to, at 10 o'clock at night when the kids are going to bed, just play an hour of Football Manager.
Yeah,
and just go to bed. And then get up the next day and forget about it for 2 or 3 days, and I might go back and play another hour in a few days. Whereas,
I have to be honest, all I need is this kind of conversation. I'm very tempted to go and buy it tonight.
I'm like tomorrow morning, and I'm half online, but I'm also playing Football Manager. I won't know the players, like whatever happened to Cherno Samba.
Oh, the cheat codes almost. Yeah.
I don't know them.
I'll go all the way back
so
to
tempted, but I'm resisting.
Makoku.
Maybe February I'll start playing.
All right. So we need to watch Nathan when he's working from home, I suspect.
Video game addiction is real.
Get that keystroke thing that the CIA have. It's 8:32 this morning. That took a turn, didn't it? OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now we're turning our attention to Gaelic football, and I'm delighted to welcome David Tubridy to the show. David, good morning to you. How are you?
How are we keeping?
I'm very good. You're now a former Clare footballer.
I am, unfortunately.
Was it an easy decision in the end? Had you made your mind up at the start of last year that was going to be your last year, or was the end of the season like, okay, I've had enough of this?
I think it was probably more from the Derry game last year. When we were walking off Crow Park, something inside me probably told me that that was kind of it for me. And the last few months now, or not the last few months, I suppose the last few months I've humming and hawing and whether I'd stay on or not, and every day it'd be different whether I'd stay on. But I finally just made the decision, and I think it's the right decision for me anyway.
Well, I was going to ask, was there a relief when you made the decision and started telling people, or was there a little bit of you thinking, actually, you know what, I was still pretty good?
There was. I suppose there was always people saying, "Oh, there's one more year in you. There's one more year in you." But I think when I said it and told people that it was finally it, I think there was a relief for me that. Because everybody was always coming up and asking me, "Go on, you stay on another year." But I think it was just, I have 15, 16 years of it done now with Clare, and I just felt that it was time.
Is there a temptation there, David, with the condensed calendar to kind of stay on, because you don't have to commit for as long as you might have had to, 5-10 years ago?
Yeah, I suppose it's shorter. Like as a few of the boys were telling me, there's only 5 or 6 months in it, and it's all over. where a couple of years ago, like, you're starting back, and you start back nearly in October, end of October, and you're going till July, August, which is a long year. But there was that temptation of going for 5 months. But I suppose I didn't have much training done up to now, and I think I would have been trying probably in catch up at that time. Probably wouldn't have been ready for the first few league games, and when I want to play, I want to give it my all from the day one. I don't want to be coming in halfway through a league or championship.
David, your scoring record is phenomenal, like record breaking. Was there extra pressure on you to perform when you were playing well? Like, this is kind of a double-edged sword, where you're playing well and you've got responsibility, and that's great, and obviously you're doing great stuff for the team, but with that then comes leadership even earlier in your career than maybe would be normal for somebody at your age, when you do start to score heavily so early in your career.
I suppose I didn't really think of it that way. I suppose I always thought I had a job to do, and I picked inside the forwards to get the scores and to put up as many points as I could. I just thought that from day one that would have been me. But no, it's tough. It's a hard one from an early age and stuff like that. There's a lot of pressure on you. I remember my first day against Carlo above in Milltown that I think I missed a 13-yard free. That was my first game out for Clare, and it was a tough one that day. I think we lost by a few points, but that was a small bit of pressure, but listen, you just get used to it.
Was that the Tommy Murphy Cup?
No, that was my first full year with Clare. Was my first league game against Carlo,
right,
in the National Football League. Yeah.
You'd had your debut the previous season under Paddy, had you?
Yeah, my first game was against Tipperary in Ardfinnan in the Tommy Murphy Cup. Yeah, I was playing with the Clare Juniors at the time. We got to Munster final. We lost by a point to Cork, and a few weeks later, I was called up into the panel to play in the Tommy Murphy Cup, and was delighted to get my first Clare appearance under Paddy O'Shea.
What was that like? Because at that stage, Paddy's legend had been well established as player, manager, and this is kind of it's a different stage of his career, really. But there was a messiah feel to Paddy whenever he was doing anything. So what's that like for you as a junior footballer called into the senior team with a bit of a reputation, I suspect, locally anyway, as somebody who might be a significant part of Clare's future?
It was a huge call. I was delighted. I suppose when Paddy O'Shea comes calling on you to enter into the senior panel, it's an honour. And just to listen to him talk in the dressing rooms before the games and stuff. And I suppose in Ardfinnan, just to watch him, remember there was a lot of people out there watching him coming into the car park there that day, just to see him. Tipperary supporters and Clare supporters, but just to play under Paddy was an honour, and pity there was another year in him.
Yeah, absolutely, and that career that he had is obviously something that we kind of in retrospect really pay much more attention to and understand a bit more, and just the knock-on impact, the kind of ripple effect that he had in football generally. I'm really interested in your view on how the game has evolved from the time when you make your debut to now, and the changing role of forwards in particular. Was there a period where it got less enjoyable, or actually was your role okay because you still had the responsibility to be on the end of moves?
I suppose halfway through my career, the division, Division 3 and stuff like that. Division 4 and 3, a few years ago, I suppose 8 or 9 years ago, they started bringing back in sweepers and crowding out defences, which was a bit frustrating. There was always fellas sitting in front of you, and I suppose it was news to me. I was seeing fellas standing in front of you, blocking your pass to win the ball and stuff. But it has evolved a long way. I think these days, I think that the mark in the forwards, I think that should be got rid of. Talking from a forward, I think it's a bit unfair in the back. You like to see the forward win the ball and take on the man, and which we used to do years ago. But now they can. The mark is kind of it's a bit frustrating. It's a bit frustrating for the backs, but it's evolved a lot over the years. But no, it's tough at the moment. It's tough to play inside the full forward line at the moment because you're asked to track back, defend, and come out to the 45 or come back to the halfway line, crowd out the team or crowd out the opposition. So things have changed a long time because the early days I probably wouldn't have passed the 20 to 21 or the 30.
You get a nosebleed going back that far, I'd say, David, back in your early days.
They'd be just asking me what I've been doing back there. That's
yeah, exactly. The rule changes year on year. Like, is it tough for players to follow these consistent rule changes? Because even as a viewer, sometimes you're starting off a league and championship year going, geez, I don't know what the rules are anymore.
Yeah, I suppose they're always been changed. I suppose I remember I came in the first year, I think there was a yellow card brought in, and if you got a yellow card you were sin binned or something. If you got 2 yellow cards, so I remember we played Cardiff that day, and I think we were down to 13 men because 3 people got yellow cards or something like that, and then I don't know, did they miss 1 or 2 games for us, and they were the key players for us, and we just didn't adjust it at that time. But down through the years it's always chopping and changing, and I suppose it gets frustrating for players. I suppose the black card is probably a good rule that was brought in. I think the 45 from the kick out, the mark from the kick out is a great rule. But as I said, the mark in the full forward line, I suppose it was intended to be brought in for, say, David Clifford's catch in the All-Ireland final last year, the high ball, he went up and he fielded it over his head. I think it was brought in for that, but you can see fellas and they're winning handy ball down around their toes and they're caught putting their hand up for a mark. I think it's chopping, too much chopping and changing for me.
The evolution in Clare football that you've seen from the bits where you needed an outside manager to get a bit of attention, to Colm Collins coming in and now being the longest serving inter-county manager I think there is in the game. What was it that Colm Collins brought that allowed the team to become an established Division 2 team and really begin to dream about growing Clare football?
I suppose Colm had, he was manager of Cratloe. He was manager of the minor team, I think, for Clare early on. And he kind of knew the underage in Clare football and the potential that's there. And I think that's the difference between a homegrown manager and an outside manager, because he knows the ins and outs of Clare football. He's Cratloe were a senior team. And then they played the divisions, the QC Cup. They played, I suppose, Division 1, 2, 3 and 4. And he got to see all those players coming through, which was huge for us, because we got a lot of young fellas coming through from, saying senior clubs. But earlier on, you got the likes of Colin O'Connor, Jamie Malone came into the panel, which they wouldn't have been senior players. But you could see Colm saw that the potential in them players, and they brought him through, which was huge. And it was just Colm was just organised from day one. I remember his first meeting in Innis, that he just came in. He just goes, "Listen, lads, we're a top 16 team," and he just talked about how good we are, but we're not showing our potential. And you can see us now, there's a bit of organisation, and you can see where Clare football is right now. We're playing Division 2 football with the last 8 or 9 years, or 7 or 8 years, I suppose. And it's great. It's great for the football in the county.
Could you have foreseen, David, in 2007? Like, I'm sure across 15 years in Gaelic football, even in terms of sports science and how quote unquote professional the game has got, there's been remarkable changes. Unbelievable.
I suppose the early days after a match, you'd go in into for the food after matches. You'd have a steak, a massive steak, like wouldn't you be able to eat it and stuff like that. And, the S&C coaches have come in. I didn't really start doing gym work, I suppose, until probably Micheál McDermott came in with Micheál Cahill. That was a proper first S&C coach that came in, and you've got dietitians, you've got psychologists, you've got anything you want now that you'll get. You've got a forwards coach, defensive coach, you've got coaches for here and there. that's what Cullen has brought to Clare football. He's adapted to what the Kerrys and Dublins have been doing over the years, and we might we're there with all the backroom team. We've got all the backroom team analysis, everything. So Clare's come a long way, and since I started off playing.
Did you embrace all that? Did you find that enjoyable and helpful?
Oh, I did, yeah. I was saying, if I had as I said, the dietitians, S&C coaches that are there at the moment right now, if I had that when I started off playing football, it would have been way better. I think young lads these days get a massive advantage from where players started 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing that we should talk to you about is the all-time scoring record in the National League. GA records aren't brilliantly kept, but there was certainly this sense that what you were doing was fairly remarkable over the long period of time. At what stage did you become aware of this?
I suppose I came aware of it after the game. I think a reporter here at Clare, Owen Brennan, came up to me and he just said to me, he goes, David, did you realise what you've done? And I hadn't a notion what he was on about. And he goes, they were after becoming the all-time National League top scorer. And it didn't really hit me at that point. But I suppose one of the things that I saw on Monday morning was yourself, Ger, and you're reading it out in the back of a newspaper, I think it was. But when I saw it in the newspapers the following day, I just realised how big it was.
I'm amazed. I thought that maybe a couple of years back you would have thought somebody would have pointed out to you that's I can go after that, but you didn't know about it at all.
No, I haven't a clue.
Right,
so
Jesus.
Didn't even know what I scored in the league, or didn't know what I scored in the championship or anything like that.
Because this is the thing, right? In American football, they would have a ceremony. They would have stopped the game for 5 minutes. There would have been red dancers on, and there would have been confetti guns. Exactly, yeah.
No, there was nothing like that. You see in the NFL, I watch the NFL a lot, and then you'd see this receiver record was broken or touchdown record was broken. But in the GA, I suppose that's something that we don't do. And I suppose, I don't know, I think Killian Connor is the top scorer in the championship. And I know that I seen comments that people were kind of giving out that no, Killian Connor is the top scorer and stuff like that. But people were kind of checking him on it that no, it's a National League record. So
you probably only get to appreciate these records and stuff, the individual feats, after you've retired as well, David.
I suppose you do, yeah. It's great to look back and to see what you've achieved. Mickey Kearns was actually he called in to me here a few weeks after I broke the record. I think he kind of comes around the area, so we know a local guy that knew him, and he called in here, and I got a photo taken with him and stuff like that, which was great to have, and still have it there.
The other edge of that, of you being Clare's, I guess, target man and principal scorer, is that no matter who you play against, you're probably getting put up against the best man marker or the tightest defender. Who were the defenders you didn't like coming up against? Who were the toughest defenders you came up against across your career?
Well, I suppose early on in my career, when I used to in Division 4, you probably Maurice O'Gorman from Waterford he was a very tight marker. Then you've got Johnny McCarthy in Limerick. We got to play him a lot as well, and I came up a good few times against Mark O'Shea. You can see what Mark O'Shea has achieved over the years, and just to come up against and play these top defenders was great, because it always tested you. And after the game, you'd when they'd be marking you always kind of learn off them, and you see what do I have to work on for the next day, and what you'd be looking back on video and all that kind of stuff, and seeing the kind of runs I need to make the next day. So it was always a help to mark the best players, and it was great to mark these guys during my career.
Has the sledging from defenders developed over the last 15 years? Even I enjoyed the Padraig O'Hora, David Clifford stuff, got a bit of attention, but I'm sure it's improved in its originality, I guess, over the last 15 years, the sledging.
It has, but I don't really take any notice. If anything, it kind of riles you up, it gets you going. You wouldn't really say things back to you or say things back to defenders or anything the way I tried to answer him was to put the ball over the bar, put the ball in the back of the net, and usually if you do that quick enough, that kind of shuts them up a small bit. But I never really got that much sledging over the years. But you hear a small bit, but not major.
It's a bad idea to sledge the highest scoring footballer of all time. It's like, that one will generally tend to bite you on the ass. I just wanted to ask you before we go about Division 2 of the Alliance Football League next year. So it's Limerick, Cork, Meath, Louth, Clare, Derry, Kildare and Dublin, obviously. And half those teams will end up playing for the Sam Maguire, and some of them will end up not playing for Sam Maguire by virtue of the Connacht draw in particular.
Yeah.
Was all that stuff when it was going on in the background? Were you talking about that in the dressing room, or did that kind of exist separately? That whole proposal of B and those conversations, or were you definitely involved, kind of saying, "Come on, this has to happen"?
I think last year, when it came in last year about, say, I think there was a few teams that if they got to the provincial finals, that if you came third last in Division 2, that you would be out of the All-Ireland series. I think that was a huge thing as well. I think that gets teams really. You really have to hit the ground running in the National League this year. I suppose last year and this year, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough division. You've got Dublin and Derry down there at the moment. Derry flying high after last year, and Dublin getting relegated, which was a huge thing altogether. But they'll be going to get back into Division 1 and try and get back the All-Ireland. But you can see it's going to be a very tough division with Cork. Big win over Kerry there the other night. And then you've got Kildare down there, and you've got promoted Limerick, and it's going to be, you've got Meath down there as well, new management as well. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be very tough there in Division 2.
Plenty of time for you now to work on your golf handicap. What are you playing off at the moment?
I play F6 at the moment.
Right. So you'll be scratched by the end of the year. Is that what we're hearing?
I don't know about scratch now, but we'll work on it. I need a bit of lessons first. So a few lessons, and hopefully I can get it as low as I can.
Well, listen, we hope you enjoy the retirement. Obviously, a very busy time for you, no matter what. But thanks a million for joining us. Cheers, David.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
That is the legend that is David Tubridy, the highest scoring Gaelic footballer of all time in the National Football League. That's some list of players. Miko obviously was a National League superstar. Dermot Early Senior's on the list. Brian Stafford is on the list. Stephen McDonough's on the list. Conor McManus still active, but he needs to kick 90 points this season in the league to overtake David Tubridy. Maddie Ford, Tony McTague, Ronan Carlin, and Mickey Cairns was the one who he broke, who played for Sligo for 17 years from 61 to 78. But we should have stopped the game.
100%. Well, we definitely need
get
to
some tanks onto the field. Something ridiculous.
Well, it's like we have the guy who follows and tracks the crappy quiz results week on week. We need people.
Cilla Wallahan.
Yeah, well, it's Cilla Wallahan, of course, from Offaly. We need someone to properly. This can't be it has to be the GA or a central thing done, but there needs to be records kept properly. I mean, the fact that he didn't know until a reporter tells him after the match.
I think there's some move afoot to do that over the next period of time. It's probably going to all end up being linked in with the new GATV station that we have.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be done. But what a career, Jesus! When you look at the record, the scoring record, if you're playing Clare, you don't want to be marking him. Put it that way. And 7 seasons is it they've been in Division 2, so fully established.
Yeah. That when you look at that division, right? Dublin, Kildare, Derry, Clare, Louth, Meath, Cork, and Limerick. Who's going down?
Yeah.
You
have straight away have to look at the teams that came up. Was it Limerick and Louth came up? Because the other teams have been fairly established in Division 1
Limerick and
or 2.
Louth on a roll.
Yeah, well, no.
No?
Yeah. It's tough. But that kind of only serves to highlight Tubridy's record, because they weren't all, with all respect to Division 4, he wasn't scoring just in the bottom tier.
No.
He was doing a lot of scoring in Division 2. So.
No, absolutely. A superstar in any team, and would have been like a 6 or 7 time All-Star if he'd been born just down the road in Kerry. And Kerry would have won far more All-Irelands if they'd had David Tubridy the entire time as well. The power rankings are coming back next week. We're going to have the power rankings. So in advance of the return of the Alliance National Football League, it's time to see what impact the return of the Dubs has had. It's time to see what impact Cork's hammering of Kerry in the first round of what's the cup they call? Is it Walls? What's the one?
Grad and in Munster,
of that one. What impact that might have on the power rankings. We'll see next week. So if you've got any suggestions, you should get them into us at Off the Ball AM on Twitter. And a reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day.
Yeah, 8:54 AM on this Friday mornings. I keep going to say Thursday because you're here, Ger, but it's Friday mornings, OTB AM. Time to say a very good morning to the 1997 World Snooker Champion, Ken Doherty. Morning, Ken.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Keeping well. We will get to the Masters preview because Ali Pally has had to quickly turn from the darts to the snooker for this Sunday, but I did want to touch on the Chinese corruption and match fixing story, which has kind of developed again from this week. So the snooker governing body on Tuesday suspending 2 more Chinese players investigating this alleged match fixing and betting scandal, Ger Shane being one of them, which is the big name, and he's had to pull out of the Masters, or turfed out of the Masters essentially, replaced by Hossein Vafay. This is a story that is putting a bit of a stain on the sport at the moment, Ken.
Yeah, it is. It's I'm shocked and saddened at the same time, to be honest. You know, Xiao Xintong, UK champion, former UK champion, won the UK last year, or the year before last in the German Masters, a very prodigious talent. And of course, Yan Bingtao, who won the Masters only a couple of years ago. They're the 2 of the highest ranked players that have been suspended, have been sort of embroiled in this sort of match fixing or match betting controversy. And along with 8 other players, Liang Wenbo was already retired. I think he was the most prolific of them all, but he's gone as well. And it's just it's marred the sport. But the good thing is that, you know, that it'll be a lesson to anybody who thinks that they can sort of bet or match fix in our sport and try and get away with it. You know, at least they've been caught, and the punishments will be handed out in due course, and I'm sure severe punishments at that.
There have been high-profile incidents over the years, Stephen Lee being one that comes to mind, and like the punishments have been meted out. But when you say lessons have been learned, I guess from that perspective, it hasn't been learned at this point.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I totally agree. I thought, you know, with the severe 12-year ban at Stephen Lee, that would have frightened anybody off. But obviously, I mean, these are young lads coming into sport. Those 2 high-profile, Liang Wenbo as well, and then there's another 7 after that, and some of them are very, very young, very vulnerable, but probably not educated, and probably the rules of our game and the possible suspensions and fines and bans that they could face just by betting, not even match fixing, but just by betting alone. It's not allowed. It's totally illegal in our sport. We're monitored by Sport Radar. We have our own sport integrity unit. You know, you thought after the Stephen Lee incident that nobody else would dare do it, but obviously they have, and they've been caught. And it was actually one of the younger lads who was sort of coerced into doing it, that he was the whistleblower, and it sort of unravelled this whole sort of system between these 10 Chinese players.
Which in a way is good, right? Like in many sports, when this happens, a lot of sports are like, oh, it's just a few bad apples. But actually, you know, having an open conversation and being openly disgusted by it is the only way for this to work out. Is this something that has always been around though, Ken? Like, were you ever approached at any stage when you were playing, or did it never? It didn't happen like that, did it?
No, not at all. You know, I mean, you hear stories. I mean, there's obviously. I mean, back even when I was playing, we were allowed sort of bet against, like if we had a high break. I remember once I had a high break in my first year. I think it was in the Mercantile Credit Classic, and it was 126. It was against Eddie Charlton, and I was allowed back against it in case it got beat as a sort of a saver. And believe it or not, the 126 stayed for the whole week, and I lost both sides. So, but those days, that was typical. But those days you could do it. But then, of course, you know, the bans of betting and of course, particularly match fixing was always banned. But you know, you were allowed to sort of have savers years and years ago. But that was turfed out many years ago. But since then, no, I've never been approached. But obviously, it's been going on behind the scenes, and but you know, as you said, that the highlight, the good thing is that it's been highlighted and they've been caught, and you know, it's the only way to sort of deal with this is to hand down severe bans, you know, to those who are the perpetrators, you know.
And was there ever a sense that this might be going on at like the lower ranking tournaments when, you know, back in the day, or had it always kind of just been a sense that actually, you know what, it's not really worth it?
I don't know. You see, because it's monitored as well, it's very, very difficult to get the money on. Now, because these are Chinese, there may be lots of money going on in the Chinese markets that are hard. But even with Sport Radar, they're monitored now. So, but years and years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. So there probably was like stuff in all sports. I think you see some of the Premiership footballers. You see it in tennis and golf and lots of other sports that it's happened.
But college basketball, like that was the kind of
America,
exactly. The point shaving stuff.
Yeah.
And the cricket,
even the Hansi Crunchy incident in the cricket. Yeah. So it's been going on in a lot of sports, and particularly because of the betting companies and all the little different markets that they have as well. But yeah, it's been going on in all sports. But thankfully, that we've found, in our sport, that we've found the guilty parties and we've dealt with them, as I said, severely. And I'm sure, this is a very sad time for snooker, and particularly for, because these young lads, they've come over from China, dedicated their lives to snooker, and particularly the likes of Yan Mingtao and Zhao Zhitong, who have sort of got into the top 16, are very, very successful, and sort of the flag bearers now for Chinese snooker. They will be marred with this for the rest of their careers, and could possibly have thrown their careers away because of it, and it's just it is very, very sad in a way,
It's crazy because when you watch some of the videos of these frames where match fixing is alleged to have occurred, and sometimes it can be a case of, a player winning 4-1 instead of winning 4-0. It can be very subtle, but sometimes it's a player missing a shot by millimetres, in the jaws of the pocket, or just going out of position ever so slightly. But it strikes me that snooker players are so talented and so precise nowadays that you could on purpose miss a shot or put yourself out of position by even the slightest of margins.
Yeah, you could do, but if it's been highlighted by our integrity unit that there has been suspicious betting patterns on a particular match, I would be able to see. I would be able to know, no matter how good they are, of the way and the manner in which they're playing, that whether it's dodgy or not, and you can't hide from that,
It strikes me that when you look at all of the winners of the World Snooker Championship have come from the UK, Neil Robertson, of course, as well, from Australia, but snooker in China.
There was one from Ireland as well.
Sorry, of course, yeah. Well, notwithstanding, of course, the most important one. But if you look at the game in China and how it's risen, and it's clearly been on an upward curve over the last number of years, thanks to the likes of Ger Shane and Yan Bingtao. But
Ding Chongwei as well.
Of course. But what like you felt like a Chinese winner of the World Snooker Championship was only around the corner, but this could set the game back in China decades.
Yes, it could do. Yeah, and particularly, these two guys, the likes of Xiao Xintong and the likes of Yan Mingtao, these were two of the more likely guys to actually win the World Championship at some stage. Very talented players, very different sort of characters. But yeah, they had the potential to go on and win the World Championship. And it will set it back a little bit. But I think, like all things, the game is bigger than individuals, and the game will always survive. And there are lots of great players, in the Masters this week and on the tour as well, that will keep attracting, the spectator. You see the Masters is almost completely sold out every session. So it hasn't taken away from the popularity of the sport. There are some bad elements in the sport, in every sport, but they will be found, and they'll be found guilty and dealt with severely, as I said,
When you look at the Masters then, kicking off this Sunday, Ken in Ali Pali, you mentioned Mark Allen is someone who has been in prodigious form winning the Northern Ireland Open, and then a brilliant comeback win against Ding Chongwei back in November in the UK Championship final. Bang in form, and he could really do it. He's already won the Masters before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's full of confidence. He's different Mark Allen this year. He's lost 5 stone during the summer. He feels great. He's playing, very, very freely. He won the Northern Ireland, as you said, the UK. So he's coming into this as the man in form, and I think he's the man to beat. Himself, and obviously Ronnie O'Sullivan, who's won it 7 times. It's a tournament that Ronnie O'Sullivan, it's in his back door. He gets himself up for it every year. He only has to win 4 matches to win it, so it suits him. But I think Mark Allen will be his biggest threat this week. Yeah.
Ronnie, as someone who can be in the mood for a tournament and not in the mood for a tournament, he of course enjoys the media work as well whenever he gets knocked out. But as you said, the format suits him perfectly because he doesn't have to concentrate over a 17-day period like at the Crucible. It's quick fire.
Yeah. it's quick fire. He only lives like, half an hour, 40 minutes away as well. That suits him as well. And yeah, I mean, he's won it 7 times. I think he's been beaten 3 or 4 finals as well. He has an incredible record over his 30-year career. And he just keeps going on and breaking records. He's the most wonderful talent that a game has ever seen. It's great that he can still play. He's 47 now. I think might be even gone to 48, and he's still at the top of the tree. He's number 1 in the world, and it's just magnificent.
Like Alexander Palace, in terms of the snooker, normally when people watch snooker and tune in, they see the very quiet, respectful crowds. But in Ali Pali for the Masters, it's the one occasion where the crowd lets loose a little bit, and Ronnie certainly, as you said, a home favourite. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, there's 2,000. Can hold 2,000 seats now. It was 1,000 when we went to Ali Pali first. They increased to the 500 because of the demand. Now it's up to 2,000. And the atmosphere is just electric. I mean, we saw it last year, the reception of all the players that came in, and particularly that match Higgins and Williams, where they both got a standing ovation for the final frame. I mean, I was in the commentary box, the hairs in the back of my neck were standing up just watching it. It was quite incredible. We thought we'd never see the likes of when it was in the conference centre years ago, but it moved to Wembley Arena and now into Ali Pali, where it's really sort of has its own home now. It's a wonderful, wonderful tournament, and there'll be a great atmosphere. I can't wait for it to start tomorrow.
Mark Williams is someone who I know he's been in Ireland doing exhibitions this week as well, but someone will be heavily fancied. Neil Robertson being mentioned. Williams, I think, has David Gilbert up first, who's been a late call up because of the Chinese match fixing. So you expect him to go far as well.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's one of those tournaments. I mean, the opening match is Neil Roberts against Sean Murphy, who they played in a couple of finals together. So, I mean, most of the matches in the first round, you could almost grace as like some finals, there's some great matchups. Higgins against Lazowski is a great matchup as well. But Mark Williams is he's one of the guys, the class of '92, that could go a long way in this tournament. Neil Robertson is defending champion against Sean Murphy, as I said in the opener. That's going to be a great start. And of course, Selby in the evening time as well. Any one of those. Selby in a bit of form as well, has come back. Won the English Open just before Christmas. He's had his problems off the table, sort of mental health issues. It's great to see him play and back to his best as well. So, I'm looking forward to a great week of snooker and some great matches, and hopefully we'll get a couple of the big hitters in the final and have a great final on Sunday week.
Ken, with all the lads making a comeback, are you getting... What's going on?
Dust the cobwebs off the queue, Ger.
Yeah, are you...
I'm still playing. I've actually got myself and Jimmy White. I've got a qualifier. Jordan the Masters actually up in Barnsley, so we'll have to make a little road trip together up to Barnsley, play in the Welsh Open qualifiers, and then back down. So, I'm still enjoying it along with Jimmy, and I don't think Stephen is enjoying it as much. He hasn't played anything this season yet, but we're still enjoying it, and we love our sport, and things like this that has marred the sport a little bit. Really sort of offend us in a way, they hurt us and they sadden us as well, and let's hope that we can get this controversy behind us and deal with it very, very efficiently, and as quickly as possible.
You were hanging out with Jimmy in Cork during the week. He's obviously a calmer individual now than he was when...
Just a little bit,
a little bit, but he still loves Ireland. He loves his pints of Guinness still, and when he's back in Ireland, and a little bit calmer, but he's still, like a cat in a hot tin roof at times. Believe me, but great character, lovely guy, and has been very, very good to me over the years. As a really good friend, and has helped me quite a lot. And I love him. He's a great character, and great to see him at the ripe old age of 60, still playing and still competing and still loving it. I hope I still have the same love as him, and I'm sure I will when I get to that age.
Well, you brought up Sean Murphy there, Ken, and I know you spend a lot of time in the golf course at the moment. We've been kind of having a discussion with a number of people on the show recently about which is the more difficult, the 147, the 9 darter, or the hole in one. Sean Murphy, of course, making the claim that he's done all three. Now we've had George Noble and Glenn Durrant on the show in the last week or two.
You keep throwing shade on his claim that he's done all three. I haven't seen you do that to his face, mind you.
Yeah. No, George Noble and Glenn Durrant calling his claim into question a little bit. But which is the toughest, in your opinion, Ken?
Well, looking, I mean, I played golf. I've never had a hole in one, but I think that's lucky in a lot of respect, particularly for amateurs, you know, because I played with guys that have had hole in ones, and listen, it's probably the only best shot that they've ever played in their life, you know. The ninth darter is incredible. Yeah, I saw some during the World Championship, which was fantastic the last week. But it's only 9 darts. We have to play 36 shots for a 147. So I'll leave it at that.
That's your answer.
Simple maths, yeah.
That's why I simple maths. Yeah.
The last one for me then is Eric Ten Hag, the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. But he certainly he's done an amazing job, and you know, the United fans are getting excited. We could still deal with a couple of players for sure. But at the moment, yeah, the Reds are back, Ger. The Reds are back.
There you go.
Bring on City.
I knew you'd be happy about it. Keno, great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Yeah, you too. Take care, guys. Have a great new year.
Cheers, Ken. Yeah.
Right.
We'll have to get Ken on. Colin pointing out to me you had to be there.
Oh, yeah, totally.
His will be brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Given everywhere he's been in snooker and football.
You
and
had
all
to
the
be
rest.
there that time that I was at Old Trafford when I paraded the World Championship. That would be like, yeah.
He's always, you see him.
Are you allowed to pick your own stuff? It isn't actually you winning something.
Possibly. Colin will
think
come up
so.
with the rules, I think. But he's opposite. You see him in the director's box with Alex Ferguson the odd time now, Ken. And Dennis Taylor as well. So, yeah, not a bad experience at Old Trafford, I'd say that.
No, I'd say that's as good as it gets. Although wasn't it Khabib's mates who outed Ferguson for giving out about Solskjaer and not picking
yes.
Ronaldo? It was Khabib, wasn't it?
Filmed discreetly.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, it
was there. Like, yeah. Fair.
I think. Anyway, 11 minutes past 9. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio for you today. OTB Gold is Catherine Switzer at 1 o'clock. On Mount Rushmore is Kilkenny. Pat Fenlon is our Team 33 LOI legend. Ronnie Delaney is OTB Gold at 6, and Adrian Barry is live with the show tonight from 7, including, of course, the crappiest of crappy quizzes. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the best in the latest sports content. Up next, Irish racing driver James Rowe is going to be in studio to talk about his ambitions of racing in the Indy 500. First, though, you're going to hear a clip from the OTB Games Room in partnership with Virgin Media. Bring your A game with 99.9% broadband reliability. Jess Zhu was the latest to take on Nathan Murphy's FIFA legacy.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Red 78.
It's going to be a bit of a lottery from the scrum point of view. They are incredibly strong.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Look, the stats sometimes can be skewed. You can have lower possession than the opposition and still win the game.
I can't believe you're being positive for 3 weeks in a row. It must have been something that's so out of your mindset.
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
So you're injured at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously a tough one.
Yeah.
ACL. Did you know straight away when you got it that it was going to be pretty serious?
No, when it happened I felt the snap in my knee, but I felt the snap down the outside of my leg.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So I didn't feel any pop, but I was meant to go into camp like 2 or 3 hours after the game, and I had my suitcase packed to go in with my roommate Izzy. So when I went down injured, I knew camp was off the books straight away, the game against Scotland. So I think that's what I was upset about mostly. But I had Rihanna Jarrett there, Lily Agg, Kaylee Nolan, because we were playing London City in a cup game. So I had all the Irish girls there to support me, I guess. But
He's finally done it! So what's that moment like then when you find out it's not just the Scotland game you're missing, that it's going to be 9-12 months and that the World Cup is probably off the radar as well?
I think it all kind of started with just accepting it firstly that I'll be out for the next year. So yeah, that was one thing that I had to do, just accept it. And then got my scan, physio rang me, said it wasn't good news. There was quite a lot wrong with my knee, not just the ACL, there was the meniscus, the LCL, the MCL was sprained. So that didn't help either, but I don't know, I had my mum there with me for the first 2 weeks, and when I was in England before I went home, and all the girls were in camp at West Ham, so I was kind of in the training ground just with me and two or three other girls that don't go into camp, and it was just lonely. It was just, I don't know, it was weird, because I'm never injured. Like, I think I've only ever missed like a week of football just from being away on holidays, never mind being injured for that long.
So
straight
soon
away.
after going to England,
Yeah.
and
I think that's what made it
into the senior team as well.
That's what made it worse. I think being a starter for West Ham and finally being a starter for Ireland, I think that made it way worse on me. I think it would have been easier if I was a bench warmer and that happened.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
We're going to play the
Here we
From
go.
a resource perspective here in this team, engineers, cars, equipment, from a driver's perspective, you want to immerse yourself in that environment. There's no program like it in Indy Next. An environment like this, it's to win and get results, so that's what we're going for. It's huge to be here in North America representing the island of Ireland. You know, not many people actually branch out of Ireland when you look at motorsport on a global scale. I'm James Rowe, Indy Next driver for Andretti Autosport.
So that's the official announcement video there, James, that we've just rolled for our audience. You're welcome to studio. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
When does this all start? When do you actually start driving then?
First race is the first weekend of March in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
But we have 2 test days between now and then, one at the end of January in Miami and another one at the end of February. And we've been rolling probably for the last 3 or 4 months, putting everything together, and we had some tests prior to Christmas and a lot of work behind the scenes.
How did they go, the test before Christmas? What kind of state is it in at the moment?
Good, yeah. It's looking really good, actually. Part of that program was the evaluation test for this deal. So that's the way it came about, is the team bring you out and they evaluate you for 2 days. And
So no pressure?
No, no pressure whatsoever. They turn the dial up and see what you can do in their machinery, see how you get along with the engineers, the crews, the mechanics, what your dialogue's like, what your feedback's like, how you advance the team as a whole. They're looking for the right candidate, and obviously with a team such as Andretti, their doors being bat down with drivers every day of the week. So even just to be honest, get that evaluation test was big, and then thankfully it went well. And JF Torman, the president of Andretti Autosport, called and offered a contract late October, and here we are now.
How many of you are on that Andretti team for the Indy Next series?
So I have 3 teammates, and it's a 4-car team. But the way it's structured within a team of such scale is that it's essentially 4 one-car teams within. So every car has their own engineer, their own crew chief, their own mechanics. Everything runs, let's say, individually while it's at the racetrack, and away from the track, then obviously it's all together as a group. Myself and the teammates work together, and the other engineers. But when we're on track,
it's a unit.
It's a unit.
Your unit.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many cars are on the grid then?
So there'll be 20 cars on the grid, based out of 4 or 5 teams, and it's to be honest with you, champions from all over the world. Japanese F3 champions, British F3 champions, European F3 guys, Indy Pro 2000 champions, winners from all around the world, W Series champions, all coming together. So it's the last step before the pinnacle of US motorsports, so naturally there's a lot of good stuff there.
So we're seeing some of the B-roll here that we have. These are the cars? These are the next cars, yeah? What kind of speeds are these getting up to?
Depending on the track, averaging anywhere from 170 to 220 miles an hour, so I don't know, about 300 and something kilometres an hour, and yeah.
Sorry, can we go back to the start of that? Look how close those cars are coming to the wall as well. Like this, when people say it's a
that's on purpose.
Yeah, of course, but it's a sport of millimetres, and that's the...
Well, and that's what it's about, whoever... The running joke is it's the thinnest line between I've got and it's got me. So whoever can run that line for as long as they can, like going on a tightrope, is the guy that's ultimately going to be quickest. So that was a street course that was played there. So concrete walls all around you. That was actually St. Pete, where our season opener is, and we'll go there, and you basically the closer you are to the walls, the faster you go.
It's funny, like I a couple of years ago got to visit the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and see the gasoline alley and the order bricks and all the rest, and you see when you're in the museum and you're seeing all the old cars and the trophies, the Andretti name is literally everywhere. So like maybe people who are unfamiliar with Mario Andretti and even Michael, just how big is the Andretti name in the States, in North America?
It's huge. I mean, the fact and the demographic behind it is that the Andretti name is known by 75% of US households. So you imagine the North American population, 75% of those households resonating with the name is absolutely huge. And ultimately, Mario and Michael Andretti, are huge names. And Mario, of course, being one of the all-time greats in this industry, in motorsport, Formula 1, IndyCar, sports cars. Michael being involved in Formula 1 as a driver, and a number of IndyCar wins and pole positions, championships. They're a powerhouse in global motorsport, actually, not just US motorsport, and that's ultimately why this is such a a huge moment for my career, is that you align yourself with both Michael and Mario and their outfit and where they're going. It's pretty exciting.
There was big news yesterday as well, aside from your own announcement, that Andretti have joined forces with General Motors for a bid for Formula 1 with Cadillac. Correct, yeah. 2026. So is this something you're keeping an eye on? Like, do your ultimate ambitions lie in Indy, or do they lie in Formula 1, or are you kind of just taking it year by year?
Well, my goal and dream, so to speak, is to get to the Indy 500, be the first Irishman there since the 1980s, and ultimately want to win it. So that's what I'm focused on right now, and being part of the Andretti Indy Next program, a level below their IndyCar program, surrounded by all the IndyCar drivers and crew chiefs and stuff on an everyday basis in the workshop, is huge for that. So that's where I'm going right now, and that's what I'm focusing on, and that's the focus. But having said that, naturally, again, the team's such scale, they're involved in Indy Next, IndyCar, Formula E, Extreme E, V8 supercars in Australia, Le Mans, with a partnership with a sports car team, of course, in the middle of the F1 bid right now. Basically, Michael's goal and vision is to be a powerhouse within global motorsport, and he wants to be involved in absolutely every top level championship and winning it. And there's more announcements to come down the line, and he's just a very, very determined, hungry individual who's going to make it happen. So yes, to be part of that is huge, and let's just see what happens. I think right now, just focus on my job, what they sign me up for, and see where the rest takes us.
It's funny when you talked about your trial not being just to see if you can drive the car the fastest, but also to give them the feedback to help the team grow. So that's something you need to work on and need to fully understand. So is your own background engineering, or how do you become proficient at explaining that something is not aligned properly, or if this?
No, I just grew up. Family business in Naas, County Kildare is a car garage, so grew up around it since a very young age, being around cars and mechanics, so to speak. And my uncle Michael Rowe had a professional career back in the 80s and 90s in Japanese sports cars and Le Mans and stuff. So naturally, growing up through his professional career, I got to pick up on bits, and I suppose when you combine the two together, you naturally just pick up a little understanding of vehicle dynamics, and it's something that comes quite easy. And
then to be able to explain it to somebody is the other aspect of that, right?
It's just it's hard to even verbalize. It's a feel, and you know what end of the car needs what, and it's purely based off experience, and we need less front spring or more rear spring, or we need more downforce, or whatever that may be. Is that it's built over time and knowledge. Like anything, you learn the principles, and then you got to feel it and experience it to give that accurate feedback. But it's ultimately a feel thing, is you got to feel at what end of the car needs what.
Speaking of feeling, right, so when you're doing the tests, what are you feeling? Like, because there's a lot on the line.
Yeah, at that test, I just focused on me and just driving and prepared as best as I could for the test. And you got to have self-belief in this sport. So focused on, as I said, on me and just doing the job, and hopefully that was enough, in which it was. So that's ultimately all you can do in sport. You control the controllables and do what you got.
So where did you learn that stuff? Is the psychology of the sport, is that something you read about? You speak to other former drivers? Is it just people you trust, or is that innate?
No, there's a certain aspect that's innate, but I think to get the last piece of the puzzle, so to speak, you got to tap into what's around you. So I've been fortunate to have some guys in my corner who've been very supportive in that area, one of which is Gary Keegan. He works with the Irish rugby team and does a lot there. Actually going to have a coffee with him after this. So Gary, paints a good picture there, and have been fortunate to have that. But then also, as I said, just going back to, you either believe in yourself or you don't, and trusting that, you're given these opportunities for a certain reason, you're in this position for a reason, and if you're working hard enough and you're doing the right things, just trust that it's going to happen.
Yeah, Gary Keegan's a very impressive character. I've never come away from meeting him without thinking, yeah, my life is amazing, I'm going to be great. It's like, it's good to have somebody like that in your corner.
No, he's good. He's just very genuine, says it as it is, and that's my personality, that I'm just very direct and no fluff and things, and that's what he's like.
That was an important thing. From speaking to you before, James, I remember you talking about how important other sports were, even in your upbringing, whether it was water sport or skiing or rugby or boxing. I know you follow the Green Bay Packers as well in the NFL. Yeah. So you seem like someone who's tapped into a little bit of everything and taken tidbits from all kinds of sports.
Well, it's funny because I didn't start motorsport until I was 15 years of age, which is very, very late. Most IndyCar Formula 1 drivers are go-kart since they're 4 or 5 years of age. So naturally, they're a decade ahead of you on the experience standpoint. So, when we're in the Andretti shop and you're hanging around the likes of Roman Grosjean and Colton Herta and, even my teammates, McElroy and Foster and Chadwick, all these guys, they were driving since 2004. I started in 2014. So that upbringing, I just did the usual sports that every Irish kid does, rugby, golf, football, hurling, whatever it may be, for various different circumstances. And that ultimately boiled down to the fact that the commercial aspect of the sport, it's a sport like no other. You don't buy a pair of boots and go to the pitch. You got to buy cars, haulers, engines, mechanics, crews, tires, it goes on and on. So to get in it is quite tough, and it took me till 15 years of age. But now I am thankful that I had that upbringing, and as you said, it paints a good picture of what other things are about. And honestly, it gives you a different perspective on certain scenarios, because if you come up through a tunnel for a decade from 4 or 5 years of age, you kind of get the blinkers on you and you can't see much. So when you see other aspects in other sports, you can look at things from certain scenarios, and ultimately it helps you.
The emotional intelligence of dealing with your team, like of talking to a mechanic who might have something else going on in their life that isn't just this thing this week, and you need to be slightly aware of that while at the same time focusing on the outcome.
Absolutely. That's a big part, and it's huge in our industry, because to win, so many things have to come together. So if I'm a rugby player if I'm a golfer or a tennis player, I just focus on myself. I know once I'm under control, I'm good. But in our industry, you got the variables of the engineer, the driver, the crew chief, all the mechanics, the guy who built the gearbox, the guy who built the engine, the tire guy. Everyone has to be on their game to perform. And if one of us doesn't perform, we're not going to win. And ultimately, it's from a Thursday through to a Sunday, of a race, there's 200 small decisions made from each of those individuals. So naturally, if my engineer's having a bad weekend and or a bad time at home and he comes to the track and that comes to the track, his head's going to be down. He's not going to be thinking as sharp. If the tire guy is having a rough time, if the crew chief is. So it's a team effort, and that's what team sports is. And yeah, you're right, you got to understand who you're dealing with and how to get the most out of them. I think that's what a lot of the greats do, and especially on the team ownership side, it's one of Michael's biggest traits is getting the most out of his guys.
When you are getting signed for a team like Andretti, is it different from a smaller team? Is there less pressure on you to bring a massive amount of sponsorship and finance with you because they're already so well established?
So it's a combination of the two. Naturally, it depends on which way you look at it. It swings and roundabouts. So being with a team of such scale, as I said, known by 75% of US households, that creates a lot of excitement and opportunity for the partners and sponsors, so they want to be part of that. But having said that, the team is extremely well established, yes, and they have a lot of commercial background and a full in-house commercial department, as any big sports team does. So it's a combination of the both. There's no direct answer to it. But one thing for sure that has been evident is the return on investment to commercial partners has grown astronomically overnight, based off the fact that we're now representing the Andretti Autosport brand, because as you can imagine...
So these are your commercial partners we're talking about.
Correct,
This is the other aspect of this that I'm not sure everybody fully understands. Mm-hmm. I'd say most people think you're a driver, mm-hmm. but actually you're a businessman.
Yeah.
Your job is to generate enough revenue while at the same time being faster than everybody else. So you've this split personality when it comes to managing your career.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. I mean, 3 weeks before Christmas, for instance, I was on the road straight for 3 weeks throughout North America, Indy, Florida, California, Texas, New York, all these states, with meetings with senior level executives in relation to what we do. But as I said, it's all been very successful, but I'm very fortunate to have very good partners around me, Top Compositioning Group being one of them, and they've been with me since 2019. And ultimately, when what's really fortunate here is the fact that the demographic, fan base, and return on investment that's on hand is, seeable. So any of these commercial partners that come on board, it's not, cap in hand looking for support. It's a full commercial proposition that grows their business. And
what is that proposition? Like, so when you were at those meetings, what are you saying? What's your job there?
Well, ultimately, every partner is going to be different, right? So it depends on understanding what your needs and wants are first and foremost, and where you're trying to take your business and what your goals and objectives are within your marketing department or your business division. But for us, some partners are all about corporate entertainment and corporate hospitality. Others are about brand growth. Others are about B2B deals. So introducing business to businesses, in the sense that, the beauty of our industry in North America is it's sponsored by all the major corporations in North America: Verizon, Hitachi, PNC Bank, US Bank, Caterpillar. It goes on and on and on. There's huge brands involved. So when other brands come in, they get to engage and interact with senior level executives who are all at the racetrack in relation to it. So now all of a sudden you're at the racetrack. You could bump into the CEO of Budweiser, and
so part of it's matchmaking.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah,
right.
It's hard to to explain it in one little short conversation, but ultimately, as I said, it boils back to the fan base, the demographics, the viewing figures that the sports gets. Like IndyCar right now in North America has higher viewing figures than men's golf and UFC. So if you think of that as a whole, it's growing faster than the big four sports on the viewing side. So you're a corporation, and you want to align with an athlete, and align yourself with a brand that's known by 75% of US households. Very quickly it's justifiable, just purely based off numbers.
Does being Irish, like that strikes me as something that's remarkable. You're going to have a lot of eyes on you, I suppose, with the Andretti name, the link there, and I guess it's about that, it's about increasing profile. Does having the Irishness help over there? Is it almost a unique selling point in some ways?
I mean, yes, it is. It helps. I mean, there's certain scenarios that it helps in. Obviously, if you're speaking to a guy who has a second name called Murphy, he's interested that you're Irish, and there seems to be a lot of them over there. But there's days that it helps, and there's days where you wouldn't mention it whatsoever. It certainly doesn't hurt. I'm very proud to be Irish, very proud to be an Irish guy competing in North America, the only Irish athlete in North America in this discipline. And as I said, the goal being the first Irishman to get to the Indy 500, and since 1980, but my goal is to be an Irish athlete in the biggest one-day sporting event in the world. So our nation is huge for producing athletes. All the top athletes. Whether it's golf, whether it's boxing, whether it's horse riding, whatever that may be. There's huge talent in this country. Rugby players, everything. But to go and be an Irish guy in the biggest one-day sporting event in the world is the goal, and that's something that, of course, is unique.
You mentioned the name Roman Grosjean there as someone who you'll be mingling with in the paddock. Familiar to any fans of Formula One Drive to Survive as the Haas driver who crashed into the barrier in Bahrain at 192 kilometres per hour. Fireball, somehow survived. 67 Gs, I think it was, on impact. Do those conversations come up in paddock when you're chatting to the likes of Roman about his experiences?
Yeah, well, I think. Yeah, he survived death that day. Like, it's unbelievably, purged through a metal barrier with a car engulfed in flames and somehow got out of it. So when you're speaking to him, you can't help but see the scars on his hand. All the aftermath of being in a fireball. He basically ran through a fire. He came out in a fireball. So look, as a driver, you don't really bring it up on the day of the event, so to speak. I mean, the reality is our sport is very, very dangerous. You're driving speeds excessive of 300 kilometers an hour, inches away from one another. So at that point, anything can happen at any moment, and it's faster than what the human body can deal with from a reaction standpoint. So yeah, he talks about it openly, and he honestly said it changed his way of looking at life and sport, because he got a second chance that day. He should be gone. Everyone was sure that he was gone. So now he's in North America competing in IndyCar and having a very good run at it. And he's a good guy.
It's unbelievable.
The whole story is unbelievable, because you've got to be continuously getting better as a driver, while at the same time keeping part of your brain going, okay, I've got to keep everybody here happy. It's a very difficult thing to be elite and high performance while also running the business.
Yeah, I look it.
It's obviously very enjoyable as well, because like you're centrally involved in everything. You get to decide. Well, you don't get to decide, but the success or failure of it ultimately comes down to you in a way.
Yeah, well, I actually like that side of the business to some degree. Obviously, I'm here to win races and drive a car, and that's ultimately why I'm here. But the other side comes somewhat naturally. But I actually find a lot of motivation and hunger from the success stories of Irish businessmen, so the likes of JP McManus and guys like that here in Ireland. Those self-made guys, that hunger, get up and go, make it happen sort of attitude is what spurs me on in that division, because you can make anything you want happen if you're willing to work hard enough. But again, I'm fortunate to have a team around me. Just in the last number of weeks, got 2 people working behind me now who are working on the brand side and the content side, and we're very senior people in big North American agencies. So yes, I'm the front of it and doing the talking, so to speak, but I'm very lucky to have a team behind me who are helping me implement that and ensure that the partners are getting return on investment.
How many races are there?
11 events and 15 races this year in North America. We'll start in St. Petersburg in Florida, work our way all up through the East Coast and the Midwest, and ultimately out west to finish in Laguna Seca in California.
It's super exciting, James. We wish you the very best of luck with it. Thanks a million for
Thank
joining
you
us.
very much. Appreciate it.
No worries. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back on Monday morning with the performance rankings. Quinny's going to be here looking back at the weekend's rugby. We're going to leave you with some thoughts on Brian Kerr, talking about why City are underperforming, and his thoughts on Irish breakthrough star Evan Ferguson. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday.
Brian, Chelsea 0, Manchester City 1. It was I'd say flat 40 minutes, and after that it was 100 miles an hour. City got going eventually, as they generally do.
Yeah, it took them a long time. They were used to seeing Manchester City dominating possession against almost every opposition. The likes of Liverpool would take them on now and again, but not too many teams have taken them on. Teams are generally prepared to play the counter-attack and deep defence and work from there. But tonight, Chelsea had a bit of a go, but it was more that Manchester City weren't at their best. It was a strange kind of a line-up with Cancelo on the right hand side. He was almost in an attacking outside right position. Walker as the right side, the centre half of John Stones and Nathan Ake on the left side. Sometimes it looked like it was a three and Foden was the left wing back, but it was hard to know exactly where they were, positionally, what the manager had asked them to do. But there was no great fluency to the game in the first half from a Man City point of view. Chelsea were the more impressive team, even though they had to put up with a couple of early changes. They were upset their rhythm slightly with Sterling going off so early. I thought that didn't help them at all. Pulisic as well, but they dealt with that quite well. But then we saw Manchester City, the real Manchester City, I'd say, early second half, changes at half time had a major impact. No messing about. I wasn't surprised he made those changes at half time. I was just surprised at the personnel. I thought it would be either Cancelo or Walker he'd take off, but he took both of them off, and it made a difference. They were the better of those changes. Akanji coming into defence had an impact, and the other changes that he made as the game went on, obviously Mahrez and Grealish come into the game as well. They had a big impact on it.
Not the first time either since the World Cup or in the weeks before the World Cup where it didn't feel like we were seeing the real Manchester City. There was a sloppiness to Kevin De Bruyne again tonight that was there against Everton at the weekend. What is it that's happening that we're not seeing the real Manchester City to the consistency that we've seen over previous seasons?
Well, it's hard to analyse that and but you know, be succinct about the reason for that. Obviously there was a fair disruption to the squad with so many of their players being away at the World Cup. De Bruyne didn't have a particularly good time. Obviously he would have brought a fair bit of criticism on the team by saying in advance of it, it appears that he said that the team was too old to win it, and the performances at the competition were majorly disappointing, I think, given that it was considered golden generation. That's kind of the end of them, and it proved to be the end of Martinez too, the manager. But not just him, I think the fact, I mean, Alvarez was involved tonight and he had a great World Cup, still waiting on him to play, but several of the other players were at the World Cup, I think.
Because we were at the Etihad for the match against Manchester United, where like it was as good as I've ever seen any team play in the Premier League. And I think we all came away going, like, it was Grealish's best performance. Foden scores a hat-trick. Haaland scores a hat-trick. That they were just going to steamroll everybody since then. Yeah. And they've never got anywhere near that level.
Yeah. Well, they haven't dropped. I mean, they've lost a couple of games in the league. I mean, points-wise, I think the manager Pep has been having a bit of fun in recent days, saying it looks like Arsenal might hit around 100 points the way they're going. And I think he's kind of playing a bit of mind games, putting her up to a bit. But if you look at their own points, I said to you before the game today, 36 points is not a bad total from 16. Most teams, most managers, if you have 36 points, you're averaging over 2.2 a game. That's league winning form. The problem is that just Arsenal have been ahead of that. They've only played 2 games that they haven't won. Arsenal, 1 loss, Manchester United, and 2 draws, isn't it? Yeah, they've had 2 draws. But you look at City, they've not too badly at all, but they haven't been at that level that we saw. Now, I'd say there was a fair amount of disruption around the whole World Cup. The players been absent for so long and tough to get back into the rhythm. I mean, Everton the weekend fought like demons to hang on to point. It was an extraordinary goal by Doherty Gray, the counter-attack. We got a bit of time, made time, stuck her in the far corner. Then they just couldn't break them down. Everton dug in. But the movement and rotation and quality of the passing hasn't been at the level. I said to you early before the game even that the Haaland one is interesting because they've become a bit more predictable now in their movement and in their positional play because of Haaland's presence. He's only ever in the centre forward position, whereas previously we used to watch Manchester United and anybody could appear in the centre forward position, even the fullbacks, even Walker, even Cancelo, but certainly those attacking players, the likes of Bernardo Silva, Gundogan arriving late, Mahrez coming in off the flank, Foden from the flank, whoever happened to be around, and maybe that's helped the opposition a little bit. They can focus on the centre forward.
And a team like Chelsea tonight who have such experience at the back, Thiago Silva and Koulibaly were excellent throughout the game. Like I know you don't want to create any headlines, and nobody wants to say like Haaland hasn't been an unbelievable signing and may not be the best striker in the world. But tonight, Manchester City had a lot of possession around the Chelsea area. Is that where Haaland is the difference? That now if you mark Haaland, that no likelihood Bernardo Silva's not going to make that run he might make.
Well, when you look at with the evidence is there, that's the case. I mean, if he scored 21 goals before tonight, and I think the top scoring player after that is on 3 or 4, it would suggest that all the action is with Haaland around the box and the opposition. And we saw Everton at the weekend where Godfrey, who hasn't had a great career by any means at Everton, his job was concentrated on probably upsetting Haaland to a degree. Haaland took the goal very well, the cutback, and he's in space, he took it in there. But aside from that, Godfrey did very well. He upset him, it seemed, physically and mentally by sticking close to him, by being aggressive to him, and Haaland reacted to that. And maybe that's, I mean, the 2 lads tonight didn't go that way. They went on using their experience and their guile to outplay him. Certainly the service to him wasn't as good. But, this could be just a period for Manchester City where it hasn't started flowing for them yet, and they just need to get a few results. I mean, they've scrapped out a result tonight, deserved to win overall, I thought, the way the game was played, and we see how it goes from here. Now they've got the Chelsea game again, the cup. They want to win the cup match. They want to win the cup. Then they've got Southampton, I think, in the League Cup. But then they're into a run of games where I think they've got Spurs twice.
You've got United at Old Trafford straight away after.
United, and there's a couple of Spurs games coming up. But we might see them back on their game. There's obviously a little bit of pressure on a lot of the players. The manager won't be too happy. I'm sure he got stuck into them at half time tonight, and I wouldn't write them off in terms of getting on that run that we've seen before where they can string 8, 9, 10 victories in a row together. But I think the 2 matches when they eventually play Arsenal are going to be critical to the outcome of the league, because Arsenal are in such fine form, and they drew at Newcastle the other night. They played well, they dominated the game. Newcastle are a good side. They're going to be there and thereabouts in terms of Champions League spots. So now you're going to drop points.
They didn't have a Riyad Mahrez and a Jack Grealish to bring off the bench.
Arsenal didn't. No, but they've got good players themselves. Arsenal, I don't think they've got the depth of the squad. I know a lot of people think they've a very strong squad, and they've got cover in the full back position, centre half position, but I'm not sure they have quite the good. I think Vieira and Ketty has done quite well in the centre forward position. Vieira is the next one for the attacking positions if they lose one of the forward players.
Smith Rowe, if they can get him
Smith Rowe, if he gets back to full fitness in the midfield, it's El Nani is the next one for the centre midfield position.
But they're not.
They're not of the level that
Mahrez,
Manchester
who might
City
actually
have.
come on and be better than the guy.
But what's in Arsenal's favour is that they don't have the Champions League. They're battering away the Europa League. They were very comfortable in the group, and they were able to play very much a half and half team right through the group stages. They don't have that. And the cup competitions won't be as important to them, that's for sure. Whereas for Manchester City, the Champions League is the real ambition, I think. Anyway,
I was going to say, where are Chelsea? We know exactly where they are. They're 10th in the table. They're 10 points behind 4th. Covered their game at the weekend against Nottingham Forest, and they were incredibly flat, and it seemed like a strange game plan they had. Tonight was better, but even then when they were chasing the game again, there just seemed to be a lack of what is this team about and what are they trying to do in an attacking sense?
Well, normally when Chelsea change the manager, it's at a time it's a bit of crisis. But that crisis is usually about that they're not first or second. At the moment, the crisis is they've drifted down the table. Will they change the manager again soon? Bowley, the new owner, said all the right things about the new manager when he was coming in. But most clubs do that as well. Always when the new manager comes in, they're talking him up and talking, well, we made the right decision here. This guy is the man that can fix our problems. Will they stick to that? Because the results, I think, league-wise before tonight was 4-3-3, so I think that makes it 4-3-4. 4 wins, 3 draws, 4 defeats since Graham Potter's come in. He's had 16 matches. They've done well in the Champions League. Now, I would have said that there's a lot of experimentation going on with shapes and positions of different players and personnel. That's the way managers come in, and you have to have a look at the squad when you get there, and you're learning about them as they play in the matches. But usually while that's been going on at Chelsea, the new manager has been able to manage to win games and get them back up in the table, or get them into contention to win a competition. Sometimes it was the Europa League or the League Cup or whatever it might be, and then the next season they're back in. It's not gone that well for Graham Potter, but you have to look at the injury list, and missing Kante, he's kind of been forgotten about now a bit, but he's been such a vital player for them for so long. We know how brilliant he was for Leicester, but he's been brilliant at Chelsea as well. He's a massive miss for them.
The two full-backs,
and I think I wondered about why they went, and I think there is a scattergun approach to the signings. They signed a Cucurella on the basis of one good season at Brighton. Now, I wonder when Potter was at Brighton, I think he said, I'll tell you what, this is some money to be getting offered. I think the fee was 50 million.
Yeah.
They paid for a left-back that had one good season for Brighton. And you're going, is he really that good? I would have went... No, they have Chilwell is the best left back in the league. Maybe Robertson at his best to be close, Liverpool left back. But I would have thought so they signed another left back who can play a bit at centre half, but he's not brilliant at centre half. He's not great. So you're looking at that and saying, and Reece James on the other side, he contributes so much to them. He scores goals. He had that run last year where he scored 5 or 6 goals in a short period of games. But he's a very, very good, aggressive, young, hungry, gets back quickly. I think they're two big key players for them. They lost the 2 centre backs. Christensen went off, Zuma went off, or whatever happened there, where they wanted to go, or they saw the big lights in Spain, and big money as well, because they were going on frees. That was poor management overall, I'd say, by the club, that they lost them. And then the Werner and Lukaku one, where Lukaku gone back to Inter, got nothing out of him really bringing him back. Now they've let him go back again. Doesn't look like he wants to come back to them, but they've left themselves without a real centre forward. So it's Potter needs time. What he did at Brighton, he didn't do that much better than Chris Hughton at Brighton in the first year or the second year. In fact, I think he won the same amount of matches that Chris won 9, I think, in his last year, and Potter won 9 in each of the next 2 years. He got a few more draws. It was the third season where he had started to build to the sort of team he liked and the team he wanted with the players he wanted, and he started to get the best out of some of those signings, and the likes of Pascal Grote and McAllister and Cucurella, even when he was there, and he rejigged the centre halves, and Shane Duffy lost his place and different. But it took that time. Will he get that time at Chelsea? Chelsea have not been known for being patient at all under Abramovich. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes now.
From an Irish point of view this week, Evan Ferguson has, I think it's fair to say, got everybody a little bit excited. We've been talking about him for a long time. Everyone's known about the potential that is there. He came off the bench and he made his 2 appearances for Ireland, and I think Stephen Kenny said at the time it was worth doing because he felt the way the fixtures were going to go, maybe he might end up getting a bit of game time ahead of the March games, and he could come in quite useful. I don't know if anyone expected the 2 goals in a week, and the way that he got the 2 goals. What have you made of him, and how excited should we be?
Well, look, you have to go back to the start, and Keith Long was managing the team at Bows very, very well, and he was very astute in putting young players into the team. Most of whom Bows seems to have sold in the last year or two. They're decorating all around the different levels of leagues in England. It's continued right up until today. Young Mullins went yesterday, but that one at the time was kind of startling that he put a 14-year-old into the team against Chelsea in a friendly game, and everybody took notice of that. And Keith, as I said, I respect him highly. I respect him as a player. I signed him as a player, but respect him in his management, the work he did at Bows. Now, I remember going, there's a reason for this. He wouldn't be doing this just to dress her up and hope they sell him on. He obviously thinks the boy has ability and could be in the team. And, I followed through on his background at that time and said, he's Barry Ferguson's son. I knew Barry well. Barry played in underage national teams. He played at the World Cup for us in Nigeria in 1999. Very good centre half and a very good lad. He works full time for the FAI as development officer. There's a great grounding there and great guidance, I'd say, but also a physicality. His dad is a big, tall lad. Comes steeped in a football family. His granddad would have played at a very good level. I think he would have been at Manchester United at one time as well. But Fergusons were a great football family. So he come from that environment, and he's got the physicality, guidance, technical ability, gets in early into teams, and was doing well in the underage international teams. I think the under-21s, I don't think he played much before the last game in the group when he got the headed goal in the last game, which was a powerful goal, a corner kick. And that kind of shook me a bit. I said, my God, he's jumped up from the under-17 age group straight to the 21s, he scores. And now they're starting to put him around the first team, and he's on the bench. But this week, he scored against Arsenal. And then he scores again, and you're looking at him going, what a goal. What. But it was his all-round game, and the fact that a new manager, Zerbi, comes in and thinks he's good enough to start in the team now. And it's not like Brighton have a load of injuries, and there's a load of players missing. There's 1 or 2 players missing, but there's not a lot of men in front of him. And it looks like he's going to get, a run the team now. Great potential, and I think a very steady background, very down to earth. Been impressed with his interviews. I'm not surprised that he spoke very sensibly as well, and is a team player and understands it's not about him, it's about the team getting results.
And that's perfect for Brighton as well, because they've never been a team who've been reliant on a striker to score goals necessarily. Now, it looks as though he has goals in him, but actually if you're to be the front man in that Brighton team, you're going to have to be about work rate and holding the ball up and bringing
players into the game.
Into it,
well, it's been one of the weaknesses of Brighton that they had Maupay at one time. He was not quite good enough, scored enough goals. They signed Johanna Bash at one stage. Chris paid a good few bob for him. Got nothing back from him. Welbeck's been in around the team, not exactly prolific, although he's a very good player. So they've struggled for a main man and struggled to score lots of goals. But their all-round play has been quality, and they've been very good. Last year they were very good and finished well up the table. About eight last year, I think. But they, there'll be an opportunity there. Look, the most important players in football in the world are the goal scorers. We know that. We know that this week. We know that the World Cup. We know that ever through football. The rest of the game can be tough, but the hardest place to play is in the penalty area to score goals. And this lad looks like his real ability to play up there and to score goals.
How excited should we be then? Like, you've because in a way I often think when we talk about the next Robbie Keane or the next Damien Duff, it's almost disrespectful to how good they were and how high a level they were at that age. From the bits you've seen, like, should we be looking at him starting against France?
Well, I think that you got to look at what Stephen has done and some of the things he's done. I thought they were ill-judged in some of the decisions and reliance on the young players. I thought he went too far in trying to get results. I think the players have got to prove themselves in club football to a degree, balanced with what they've done in the underage teams before they should play in the senior team. Now, Nathan Collins has done that and deserves to be in there. Ger Shane had done that in the underage team, obviously at West Brom as well. Nathan Collins was doing it at Burnley. Go back to Aaron Connolly, and he did this at Brighton, got a couple of goals against Spurs. Brilliant, looked like a great prospect. Had scored some goals at underage international level, but had been a bit sporadic and unreliable, and not every manager liked him. And has proved to be the case that he hasn't had the consistency, and he's now trying to refine himself. It looks like he's going to Hull, but he's dropped off the mark a bit. Troy Barrett is another one who has been, had a very good start, looked like he was the bee's knees. Marino urged caution in relation to him, although he was aware of his ability. They loaned him out. He's been a bit hit and miss on his loans, hasn't been a consistent goal scorer. Again, with the seniors, the national team, scored some goals against some of the weakest teams. Scored, I think it was in Doherty, he got a couple of goals in. But
he got a good goal against Scotland.
He got a very good goal against Scotland and played very well. That was his best match. But, he's been a bit of a slow burner since then. And we've had that a bit. So I think you've got to be very careful with that. Important young boys in. I think they need to be playing with experience. Needs to be experienced players. If you even look at Haaland tonight, who was a class player, unbelievable goal scoring record, Norwegian international, scores loads of goals, and he's playing against two experienced players tonight. Didn't do as well. A couple of half chances snatched at them, didn't score. Playing against better players, more experienced. That's what it's like at international level. You're playing against the best that every country. When we play against France, what will the centre back pairing be? Whoever it'll be a very experienced pair, or a very good pairing, quick on their feet. So that's going to be a big decision for Stephen to make, who's going to play up front, whether we're going to play two up front, whether it's going to be a 5-3-2 formation, what that pairing are going to be. But if he keeps playing as he is at the moment, remember that match isn't coming to March, he has to be very much in consideration. And then you might be comparing to what Robbie Keane was doing when he was 17, when he was scoring goals to beat the band in the championship, right, at Wolves, and then he went on and continuously did it. Or what Damien was doing when he was playing in Blackburn's first team as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old regular in the Premier League. That they weren't just thrown in because they were doing well in the under 18s or under 19s. For me, they were playing at the top level for the clubs. They were the best players. They were the players that the fans were coming to see to on a weekly basis, because they were doing, as many of the other players at that time, like Richard Dunn was playing regular in the first team, Steve McPhail, Barry Quinn was playing regular at Coventry in the Premier League in the first team. So that's the level. But just because fellas are playing in the first team or near the first team shouldn't mean that they're automatic for the international team. They've got to be doing it on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, I'd say, not just now and again, or not just in the championship, or not just in League One, which is the third division. But he's playing for Brighton, who are a good side in the Premier League, so he has to be considered for a starting place, I'd say.
Great stuff, Brian.
Thank you. Pleasure, Nathan.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with Exfoliant.